I don't put up with
Let's see, get a little more illumination here.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Good night, guys.
We are off and running.
Yep.
Well, I'm sitting actually.
Hopefully we're up.
How's the back doing today, little one?
It's doing quite well at the moment.
Okay. She said yesterday.
Chair was sitting crooked.
Yeah. That was dangerous.
Dangerous.
Yeah, yesterday she said her back felt significantly better for the first time.
Oh, good.
So she seems to be doing better there.
Yeah, when I was sleeping, it was significantly better.
Chris says, glad to hear you're feeling better. So anyhow, again, partially due to Eva's physical condition, partially due to the just weather conditions out here, and partially due to the fact that the truck still has some issues, so I'm trying to minimize my driving of it. We didn't get a huge amount done this week. We are all set up. Who invited the spinny thing? Not sure. Oh, apparently you're having trouble, huh, David? But anyhow, so we're all set up at Lawrence.
Good.
We got the exhaust moved from one end of the shop to the other so that Eva can do her smelting without interfering with his welding. He had it all set up at the welding end so he could weld. And,
yeah, but then he's,
and so we moved it to the other end of the shop there, and he went into that little bathroom thing and actually made a little bit of a probably got about as much space as this desk here in a corner there, so that
you can contain the mess.
Yeah, she's getting better, David.
I have a very nice miniature corner lab in a bathroom.
Yeah,
This is cool.
Yeah, it's
So
pretty neat little setup out there.
Anyhow, so we're all set up to get going. We've actually got some experiments in progress.
Oh, good.
We've got the Pure Gold 5011 drying. We have a sample of it drying right now. And we took another sample of loaded max water resin and started. Tricky had a 3-part elution process. And before what we just went straight to part number 3. And that stuff's dry now too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is not red anymore. It's more yellow to orange. Okay.
It changed color.
So it definitely did something there. And some of the beads actually broke. Okay. They split.
Cracked.
Yeah. I don't know if that might have been from freezing due to something there, maybe. I don't know. Because it was in the shop for a while there, even though it doesn't really get below freezing too much in there, but
it has
could have been enough.
Yeah.
And so anyhow, and so we started another batch of resin that we're doing the whole process on, starting with stage 1, which is a sulfuric acid elution, and then it's hydrochloric and salt, and then it goes to the sodium hydroxide, salt, and perchlorate leach.
Okay.
And for the last couple of days, it's been doing stage 2 of that. Stage 1, we got something out of the resin, but also what was interesting was it was dirty. The previous elutions were a fairly clean solution, and this, on the other hand, is kind of like an opaque tan. Looks like it had silt in it, but it wasn't when we first started agitating it. So it's like something's precipitating. And
Well, it might also have been some dirt because remember that resin was not rinsed thoroughly before it went in there.
But it was rinsed thoroughly before it put in the second one, and the second one was looking very similar color and the same kind of opaqueness.
You're pulling something out.
So I'm not sure what's going on. Don't know, Chris.
That'd be my
but
guess.
Thanks for reminding me something.
That'd be my guess, is you're pulling some copper or something out that's in there.
Because when we did the elution the last time, we take it to the lab, and he acidifies it before putting it through the ICP. And that's the color.
Kind
That
a
it
bluish
turned
color,
to.
blue-green.
Yeah. That looks like copper to me. I'm thinking
Yep.
copper sulfate,
That's what it looks like.
you know? But anyhow, so maybe what we're
Yeah,
doing.
it could be, Chris. It could be iron being it's blue also. Yep.
So either way,
Which you have a rock that has a lot of iron, so it could very well just
we
be iron.
definitely got iron
Yeah.
in there.
It could very well be just an iron sulfate.
But anyhow, so we got that in process, and I say the stuff that we alluded before, the solution didn't seem to have much gold in it. Didn't seem to be pulling much gold off. But it's definitely pulling something off.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is now, Eva's going to take that 50-gram sample and split it after drying, and half of it she's going to use the standard assay procedure, the basic, a litharge type smelt. The other one she's going to ash and then do that, because it's a reasonable possibility based on the information that Chris gave us that it's not just the gold that's vaporizing, it's the gold plus
There's
something else.
Right, that's carrying it. Yeah.
If we can get the something else out of there, we may be able to get it to where it'll ash just fine. Because we finally, again, we were just rushing like crazy at the end of the season there.
Mm-hmm.
But we know how much resin we have. We know what Eva's fire assays of those resins were generally doing. So we're in the neighborhood of 2 to 5 ounces of gold in resin right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're looking at. And we got, gosh, I don't know how much resin, but we're looking, 5 to 10 pounds of loaded resin, somewhere in that general neighborhood. So we have lots to do experiments on.
Good.
Now,
finding the right one. As soon as you find the right one, you'll have the ticket.
Well, that pure gold too, the initial bottle roll tests indicated it was not as effective as the max water at getting the gold out of a standardized solution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But when we put it in a cartridge, put it number 1 in sequence, and then started just pumping solution through it, it was grabbing the gold out of solution quite efficiently, according to our spot test. And so it might have been a loading factor thing that was limiting it there or something. I don't know. But if it's just half as good as the max water at getting the gold, well, twice as much, and you're in the same spot. But that's another one of the possibilities, John.
It may come to that, John.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyhow, so if the pure gold elutes easily, though, if we can recover the gold easily, then we can do with twice as much in circuit. That's not a big problem.
Right. As long as you're getting it.
As long as it's coming back out efficiently. Right now, it's just killing us. I mean, in terms of, we can't do it. If we ash it, we lose 25 to 50% of the gold.
That's too much.
That's just insane.
Too big of a percentage.
Yeah. So, and the fire assaying with the litharge is just too slow and inefficient.
Right.
We're processing 12.5 grams at a time. Ooh, whoop-de-doo. That'll take us forever.
Yeah.
Hey, now, if I had
great
a
little test.
decent furnace,
Little one, it doesn't matter. Inefficient is inefficient.
Right.
If it's 10 times the size, it's just 10 times as inefficient.
Exactly. Yeah. The bigger truck mentality does not work here.
Yeah. You just need to get a system that works efficiently.
Yep. And you might as well do it on a small scale and keep your losses to a minimum.
Well, not only that, but that way you still have stuff to play with.
Right. Yeah. Otherwise, you burn it up and then you're back to zero again.
Well, that's what got me last season was I went and dried that stuff.
And then had problems.
And then it's like, oh, the drying was the problem. Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Now all my good stuff's
now what do I do?
Yeah. So I say, there's that there.
Any testing, do it on a small enough scale that even if you got mistakes, you still have some room for error working with what you can do next.
Yeah. So that when things go horribly awry, you go, darn.
You don't run out and build the 100-ton-an-hour mill because that could be your failure there.
Oh, that process isn't going to work.
Hey, that's happened to a lot of companies.
Oh yeah.
You know, they thought they had it figured out, and they run out and build that whole empire and find out that they can't recover nothing.
It worked over there, just on the other side of the hill.
Yep, over on the other side of the mountain with a different ore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Zioxio over there in Butte.
Yeah.
He's going to spend some time this winter. No high priority because, of course, we can't get back there till, I don't know, May. And he's going to be looking for any information he can on the mountaintop prospect and the remote sensing stuff. He's going to go and get everything he can at the highest resolution he can.
Good.
And that way we'll have that all lined up for next spring.
No, and that's, what we've been going over is talking about getting your information put together in your area. And then you can start to kind of map out some of your rock detail before you ever hit the ground.
It would be nice to have an idea what the dip is.
Yeah. Well, and you may be able to learn more.
Yeah. So there may be
what he comes up with for information.
Yeah.
The next, the only other way you're going to probably do it is go open one of them mines and get in it and find out what's happening.
Well, that would be
and that'd be fun.
Well, it would be fun, but this thing's got a 1,500 foot of access drift.
Well,
then you've got 1,000 feet of tunnel. It's 500 feet below surface.
Yeah.
At the thing. So we're not talking something to just dig a little bit out and let the breeze circulate for a few days. It's would be a lot of work to get the air in there safe. And it's not the sort of thing where you're going to be able to walk in there like with, 15 minutes of compressed air.
Take time.
And if things go awry, you'll be able to get out because it's a long way back out, So that's gonna, doing it underground would be kind of tricky. But because it is on patented claims, we can trench and things like that.
Yeah, that's another way.
We know what the strike is. Just don't know what the dip is.
Some of the dip you may be able to find in the rocks up there, though, by trenching or getting an access just to visually see the ground.
Yeah, I saw that one, John. That's
that's
interesting
cool.
Way to prospect
yeah. That's neat that he's able to do that or was able to find that.
It's pretty old, Chris. It was shut down before 1930. So I'm pretty sure it was natural draft and everything. However, the vent raise is plugged about 20 feet below ground. Hi, Mr. Lodak.
Hello, Mr. Lodak.
And that's, let's see, the vent raise is 1,000, 1,200 feet, something like that from the portal, which could also be dug out and secured.
No.
But then you've still got another over 1,000 feet of dead end drift back in there that's not ventilated. So
by getting it open for a while, you never know.
Oh, you're talking about this? That's from the dermatologist freezing off some stuff because I've been in Arizona all my life. So there's a couple little things she
didn't like.
Yeah, she didn't like. It's I tell you what, it gives you an ice cream headache when they do several of them at once, though. It's like I had to tell her, stop.
Give me a break.
Yeah. No, Chris. That is one of the issues in terms of getting good ventilation in there.
It's 1,000 feet back to the face and no ventilation.
Yeah.
From the air shaft.
Yeah. Now there's a possibility we might be able to sink a drill hole into it and pump air in.
Yeah. Well, in some of these mines here, the air wasn't bad either. They never had it. Unlike you get south of here, there's areas that you definitely can have bad air. Some of this to the north here in this wasn't bad air in most of the mines. You still have to have air, and you have to have an oxygen sensor and know that you're in good, gas sensor.
Yeah, I say it's one of those things that it's a far from ideal situation. Although how bad it is, there's no way to find out. But you don't want to find out by dying.
No. No,
So
no,
I
you
say,
want to do it the safest, best way. But
well, we shall.
it still could very well be opened up. It's probably all intact in there once you get past the portals.
Probably.
Most of these mines that we've been in up in here, really, I mean, 140 years old, and by God, they're pretty good shape, most of them.
Well, and I
And
said,
you know, we do get earthquakes and things here, and believe it or not, they're still standing
well, I bet you the air shaft was timbered near surface,
and eroded.
and then that's just rotting and
Yeah.
collapsing. It's jammed up on the
Oh, yeah,
timbers,
probably never made it to the bottom.
probably.
You know,
And so you could probably dig it out from surface fairly effectively, but then you still wind up with, let's say, that's just been stagnant air for
yeah.
almost a century, and that's not a good thing. So we'll have to get that fixed. But yeah, you could.
You may be able to determine some of that information though from the surface rock. It's just a matter of some trenching maybe and exposing enough actual rock to see what's happening.
Hello, Lars. Have you built the ark yet? Looks like you're going to need it down there the way things have been hitting you. My Lord. A lot of sympathy from up here. That is not an ideal situation at all. Oh, Lord. I say, you saw what happened, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. So, apparently not. Well, it identifies as a drought.
Yeah, with a few flood events in between.
Yeah,
Right?
the thunderstorm identifies as a drought. But anyhow, so I say, Eve and I, we got a lot to do next summer.
Well,
you know,
that's good.
And that would be cool. Where Lars is down in the Los Angeles area,
California.
you know, and yeah, he's gotten whacked a couple of times by multiple inch rainstorms in short periods of time, which has sent a lot of debris into his adits, which is highly undesirable.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
So that's we got a lot of fun things to do this spring, and I guess you and Lauren have a bit of exploration to do up there by the log cabin.
Yeah. Well, we're going to try to, open some more drifts and hopefully do some trenching. And I don't know, we have some other properties to look at too. Lauren and I have discussed a couple other properties. So
cool.
I mean, hopefully we can get some video footage done and really do some prospecting.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that one. Sometimes they hit it on them, they nail it pretty good. But anyhow, so aside from that, what do you got planned for next season?
Nothing in concrete at this point, but we definitely want to do, continue doing a lot of prospecting and looking for possible good placer, to hopefully get something going forward.
I got to get the truck running reliably this winter here.
Sapphire?
Sapphire?
If y'all run into a nice little sapphire claim that maybe has some funny looking yellow stuff that you'd like, doesn't have to be much.
I don't know. Are there any sapphires in the areas you guys are looking?
Not where we're at here. Supposedly there was a few found, but I have yet to ever see one up in that area. But if you go west further over toward, Phillipsburg area and there's a lot of sapphire over in that country.
Yeah.
And then of course east of here.
Yeah.
Over
by the
across
river,
the lake and across and up in there.
Yep.
That was, and then over by White Sulphur and over in there.
Yeah. Well, let's say the Montana bee has been a bit disappointing in terms of grade. We're only running less than half of what we were hoping at this point.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look
as promising.
I don't think that. I mean, what we have done so far doesn't look potentially profitable. Now, it certainly wasn't profitable because of the speed which we were doing it and stuff.
No, your scale, but
But even then, at that grade and everything, it's like, I don't think we can make that, work under those conditions. Now, obviously, if you had a mountain of it, certainly, but that's not what we got. We got to vein this wide.
Well, you start looking for other mines then, you back to it. And
Yeah.
you've got some good prospects.
Top of the hill.
Yep. You got some prospects to go look at. And that's what you do as a prospector and trying to figure it out. You keep hunting.
Well, and every one that you work,
you have to
you
deduce
gain skill.
Well, you gain skill and knowledge, and you deduce that, okay, economically, this is not what we need. We got to go better. So you pick up and you move. I mean, never leave gold to chase gold. But if you're not getting enough gold to financially do the number, then you definitely have to go, okay, if this is what we're going to continue to do, we got to go find that number.
Yeah.
But, that's one thing, though, is if you're onto something and you're learning about that area and you're onto gold and it's getting, better or holding, don't leave that to go chase again.
Yeah.
And you see that especially on the gold shows and that about the time the guys start to figure out what they're doing in that drainage or something, they pick up and run somewhere across the country or to a foreign country. And it's like, that's not how you make money in gold. You figure it out.
Well, it takes
or
time.
Any mineral. It takes time and energy and effort. And the more you learn, the more you know.
Possibly, Jeff. I'm not sure about that high.
I think it might be higher than that, Jeff, when it goes. But it's a matter of, like you say, sit back and watch.
It's unpredictable. The whole situation is so unpredictable.
The unfortunate part is if it does do those kind of numbers, gold or silver, if they start really going up big time, your dollar that you're buying gasoline with might not be a good program. Yeah, I mean, because it's an offset to the, if you're going to value it in dollars, it's an offset to that dollar.
They're now projecting 9 to 12 months before the bottom falls out of the U.S. markets.
Yeah. Anyhow, might be worth doing a bit more sampling of the other structures. Yeah, I say we're
definitely, you already are in the mine.
Yeah, I say
if you got to rope down and do some more hunting, it might very well be worth doing that.
Yeah, it's not the time to just completely bail on it at this point, but my guesstimate is that next summer, if we can get to Montana B well before we can get to top of the hill, then we'll probably be working Montana B. But as soon as we can get to the top of the hill, we're probably going to want to go up there and do enough exploration to try and get an idea what's going on.
You want to get to that mapping point and trying to start figuring out what fits together.
Yeah.
And
then while we're waiting for the assays to come back,
right, some sampling, and
we can go down and run that and improve our leaching efficiency and our resin extraction. There's a lot of things to improve. And even things like that Stutenroth mill, it's got two halves of a clamshell, basically.
Right.
And with the wear bars especially in place, I mean, each one weighs like 600 or 700 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Chris came up with an idea because we have a deck that's welded on there that's the motor mounts on, is put a little, I forget what you call it, but basically like a little crank.
Yard arm.
Yeah, with a little little crank so that we can,
disassemble and put it back
take
together.
4 bolts, pull it up, swing it out of the way, get to that rotor so we can service that and things like that. Jib crane. Yep. And stuff like that. So we got a lot of stuff to do, and I have the exact right piece of steel for that because somebody, a piece of scrap steel showed up. It's 4-inch outside diameter tubing,
heavy wall tubing.
Yeah, 1/4-inch wall.
Yeah,
and
perfect.
I needed 6 feet of it for a post. We're going to put in a gate, so that'll be a gate post. And then that leaves me a 4-foot stub, and it's like, boy, I bet you I know where I could put that.
Yeah.
Plus, on the crane, also put a snorkel for the air inlet for the engine. so that you
get up
get-
out of the dust.
yeah, so you're not sucking in the dust.
No.
But
Yeah,
boy,
those
that
are all
thing
good improvements.
that thing makes a lot of dust, and I've got it set pretty good in terms of the direction. 80% of the time, the wind is keeping that dust well away from the engine.
Air cleaner.
But the other 10 to 20% of the time, not so good.
Well, that or put an oil bath air cleaner on it.
Couldn't find one.
Well, somebody makes one.
Maybe trying to find them is a little bit of a
Yeah,
pain in the
well,
butt, though.
Probably could create one too, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I went down to the guy, the steel dealer, and asked him about that because I'm having trouble finding it. And he says, it's a stationary thing. Just put a snorkel on it.
Well,
It's easy enough
get
to
it
do.
up
Just
and away.
hook a hose up to your air cleaner housing.
Yeah, take it up.
Get the inlet up there. The other thing we did this season that I wasn't doing last season that seems to be working well is those filters came with, they're a paper filter with a foam pre-cleaner on it, but it was a dry pre-cleaner. They're not dry anymore.
Yeah, oil them.
Yeah, I went to the motorcycle shop and got a can of the spray oil for
Yep.
their cleaners.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nope, good idea because at least you can throw them away if nothing else. If you can't clean them anymore, you can throw them away.
Well, I take them off,
Yep, we'll flush
clean
them
them in
out.
some gasoline.
Yep.
And when I go to take the paper filters and tap them, nothing comes out. They're so clean, there's no dust on them at all.
As long as you're maintaining it, if
Yeah.
you maintain it correctly, you're all right.
Yeah, because last year I pull the foam off and I take it, and you just see the dust fall off.
Oh yeah,
of it.
yeah. The big equipment's just nasty. The more air that's going through it, it doesn't even have to be dusty. I don't think it just.
Oh, by the way, John, also the way it's set up in the prevailing winds, most of the dust from the Stutenroth winds up on the pad.
Yeah, it's
So that works out.
it's going in the right direction.
Well, I've also got a door at the lab to
Yeah,
replace.
fix. Yeah,
too.
door to fix.
I'm going to swing it the other way,
That's a good idea.
because the wind's always coming from the north or the west.
Change the prevailing wind direction.
So that it's always being pushed up against the wall instead of trying to be flopped over. Yep. So got a lot to do. Ought to be fun. I'm glad Eva's getting better. I'm going to spend a fair amount of time over at Lauren's and try and get that resin thing figured out. And also, Lauren's got some equipment maintenance and stuff to do. Like I guess he's got to pull the engine on his excavator.
Yeah.
And it's
I told him I'd help him with that.
well, it's, me too. I said,
Yeah, we'll get her down
Well,
and get it figure out what's
Eva
going
can be
on.
running stuff in the lab while I'm helping you turn wrenches or whatever.
Yeah.
But
No, and I got those sluice boxes I got to haul out there so we can figure them out from Chris. And I got a ton of stuff
Yeah.
too. I got a truck that's got a front differential that's bad. Something's going on. So that's got to get dealt with at some point.
Oh no, Jeff, that's not my word. That's Uncle Bumblefuck from AVE. That's where I got it. Yeah, Fabricable. Yeah. Chinesium, same thing.
Yeah.
I didn't invent that. It comes from him. He's really good with words. He's
You got it.
he's got a good way of inventing words. Did you see his little signs? Danger, not to be operated by fuckwits.
Yeah.
It wasn't a sail, it was a door, and she wasn't hanging on to it. She was standing behind it. If she was holding on to it, she would have just lost her grip. I might have got
Right.
whacked a little bit, but it literally just shoved her right
Yeah.
off her feet.
It's like getting hit by a baseball bat.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Chris has it exactly right, Jeff. Yeah, he's pretty funny. I like his little signs that you can put on your thing. Some of those are pretty hilarious. And they're nice signs too.
Yeah, it does a good job.
They're well done. Yep. But yeah, I say so. We've all got a lot to do. It's not going to be as much fun on the videos as we've been doing. I've still got to get down over by Dylan there once the truck's running decently to look at Dave's mine too. That might be pretty interesting. And that might work out well in the long run too. I mean, he says there's a 10-foot layer of limonite in there, and there is in the area there. When you look on the map,
Yeah.
you can just see shaft for 2,000 feet. So
There was a lot of mines down that area that had cyanide dump, pile. They were stacking for cyanide leaching.
heap leaching.
There's a bunch of heap leaches that went on down in that area down there.
Well, and that's the other thing too. Is
And actually, with the concoction you're working on
Right.
here, that would be maybe a good alternative in that kind of gold environment.
exactly. So I say we're developing a tool that may open up a lot of opportunities too.
Right.
And so that's a good thing. So as I say, we're going to have fun. Eva's got a lot to keep her busy this winter here, and I've got a lot to keep me busy. And Jim's just going to be helping us out.
Yeah, I always got something to do. Might not be financially huge, but it's something to do.
Man, that project over at Bob's house that Lauren's in the middle of, it's like nothing we can do until the weather warms up.
No, spring again, probably.
Yeah, I mean we could do there's a couple forms to.
Well, you're in here, Lauren.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna be helping you. But he's got a couple of forms for pavers to build, and those can probably be put in without too much worry about the weather, because that concrete cracks is just holding those forms, not a big deal. We can do maybe a little bit of getting the soil up to grade.
Once you go below freezing, everything takes about 30% more time, and it's not fun anymore.
I got to put that gate post in too.
Yeah,
and that's I've got it designed for a 2-foot deep hole.
That's probably doable.
So I figure, first of all, it's only frozen the first foot right now.
Yeah, it's probably not even that.
And I've also got a Hilti.
Yeah.
So if I have to, I've got a big digging bar, and I only need a 6-inch hole. So I've got a digging bar and post hole digger.
That won't be so hard.
I don't think that. That's what we do winter.
We spend a lot of time in the winter doing that, John, just rebuilding and maybe even build some new equipment. We don't know yet. Lauren and I have talked about a project for later in the winter, maybe. But that's what you do.
Well, there's
fix everything and hopefully have it ready for the next go around.
Well, and you can also do
an update and fix, electrical cords, fix everything you can fix. And
there's internal home repair and remodeling that you can do for other people to make a little extra money.
But you always tend to let the little things go during the season when you don't have time. And
can I live with that? Yep. Can I live with that?
Yep. We'll hold that later.
Stop leak.
Put it back. Put it back together later.
We really do need to get an engine for Bugs.
Working on it.
Why not just update the whole truck?
There's
Bugs
a lot of emotional
family
stuff there, but also if you really update the truck, this is what my brother wants me to do. Buy like a 2005 or something like that. It's got all kinds of electronic boxes and this.
You wouldn't have to go that new, but you should be able to find like a 1-ton 4-wheel drive around. You could switch the camper
so
over.
When you get tired of one of your daughters or she becomes high maintenance, you're just going to replace her with another one?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Bugs is family. End of story.
But anyhow,
the goddess deeply disapproves.
So, I mean, the thing is, I've been rebuilding stuff. Transmission's got maybe 20,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
Okay. The transfer case checked out fine. The differentials checked out okay. The spring bushings still got the rear part of the rear springs to do. Drive shaft's been rebuilt. Front drive shaft's been rebuilt.
Yeah.
Need a new steering. I need to rebuild the steering box because it's leaking. That's all. That engine And I say, I've got a plan on that may work fine. My son-in-law, who's a mechanic, haven't seen him or my daughter in years, so he's thinking of maybe, I can pay for it, and put together an engine for me, then bring it over here and put it in, drive it over here and stuff, And so then we'd have better than new in terms of the engine.
Yeah.
I we're talking to my brother, and he's like, well, you can get a used truck. I said, okay. So if I got a good quality used truck, I asked Lauren about his truck, the one that he was using out there.
Yeah.
He bought that several years ago for like 20 grand or something. And I'm like, let's see, for 20 grand, what could I do to buzz?
Everything, pretty much.
Yeah.
I
for
agree.
10 grand, you can do everything.
I agree, because I've got that truck that I've got 300 on, that one pickup.
Yeah.
And it doesn't use any oil. It's all been maintained. There's the little things need to be fixed, but it's like, it's cheaper to put a few thousand in it, even if something does fail, than to replace it at this point.
Yeah, a new,
a replacement
used truck is going to cost you like 20 grand.
Well, yeah, or 30.
Yeah.
Replacement for that level of truck. But
yeah, so say for that kind of money, we could really do that nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not horribly reliable right now, but that's not its fault. It's my fault for not being able to put more into it.
Right.
Plus, I don't have really a place to work on it, and I don't have another car. So,
right,
that also
factors in there.
Yeah, it's the first time in many, many years where I've had one vehicle. It's really strange, because when I was doing the kettle corn, I had to have two trucks so that if you got a big event coming up and one of your trucks breaks,
still go.
You still got it, and things like that. And now, whoa, it's weird. But it's still running okay. Need to rebuild the carb. Although I think the plan on the new one is a throttle body fuel injection. It's like a 350
updated
with Vortec heads, throttle body fuel injection. That's about all the fancy stuff on it. But right there, you're going to be getting like 15, 16 miles to the gallon highway with more power.
Maybe, but
I'm already getting 8.
Yeah, well, that's about what they got. 7 or 8. You might get 12 with that camper, that weight on there.
Yeah, you got a lot of weight.
You're carrying a lot of weight.
It is pretty aerodynamic, though. Pulling that big trailer there, we were getting 7.3, 7.5 miles per gallon on if it was flat at 55 miles an hour.
Yeah,
we were getting about 7.5.
Yeah.
That's because I got the spoiler.
Shit.
It worked out better than I thought in many ways. But yeah, I said we got a lot of stuff like that to do. Anyone got any mining questions out there?
Or what are you guys doing in the spring? Are you working on plans for a mine this year? I know Jeff and a few guys are, but they're already planning next season. But
I agree, John. We're looking at maybe getting a used car, and the way things are going right now, we may be able to get one at a reasonable price in the not too distant future.
Yeah, it may happen.
Oh my God. Oh, it's hard to tell. But yeah, it would be nice to have a little car, and then it just opens up so many options and saves so much money.
That's where we're at. We got 3 vehicles, and we're always still rotating.
Dual sport bikes. A, ice.
Yeah.
B,
winter.
Me, motorcycle. Bad.
Winter.
Motorcycles are death machines.
They are for me, that's for sure.
Oh, they're fun. That's about all they are.
Okay.
I want a Bermuda bike.
They're fun, but
Wait so you can show people what you're doing.
Deal on a patented mine? No, that's a good idea, John. Yeah, that's no water can be an issue. Or you need two different sets of equipment, dry washing equipment and wet equipment, depending on the season or the year.
If I were looking for a patented mine, I would be looking at it as land and the mine is a bonus. So, you want to make sure you've got water and stuff.
Well, the other thing is too, a lot of times it's easier to haul water than ore.
Yeah, I don't know. Dredging in Montana, unless we get some changes, might be a little tough.
Those seem pretty reasonable numbers, Jeff.
I think that would be a pretty good set of cutoff points, Jeff. 1 ounce and 20.
Well, as he says, that may change soon.
Well, yeah. Well, the worst thing is even if the gold price, silver price go up, your cost of operations going up with it to at least a certain percentage.
Yeah.
You could just about bet on that.
Yeah.
Your fuel is going to cost more, your parts are going to cost more, everything's going to cost more also. So
that's true. If the main reason it's going up is the value of the dollar is going down. Yeah.
Well, all right. I just thought I would go back into, the next level of you've taken your maps that you've created or gotten your hands on information. You start to build a map in the area that you're working in. And you can take those geologic maps and figure out, some of the different rock types. And you take your own map and start putting information in, and you'll always want to have a key of some kind as to the symbols or references you're using. You'll create your own key, and you're the only one who has to be able to understand your own map. But it's just to get you to look at other things that can be there that maybe weren't noticed by the old timers, or they didn't have the technology we do where we can possibly even go use a metal detector or take more samples and do some more panning and checking rock. As you've got a drainage and you get in your fault lines that you took off your geologic map, you can start to put in the rock type changes and start to see that there's some areas in the map that you really should be going out and hunting. Like up in here where you've got granite intrusives coming across, into the limestones or the marble. There's areas that you really should go work these lines that maybe there's no old workings or they weren't looked at very close, that you really want to extend the concept of what you're looking at in a given area, instead of walking in and looking and going, yeah, there's some old workings and there's this and that, and not answering the questions as to what were those possible sources of gold. In a lot of cases, these fault line changes are the sources, but there can also be sources that were never found. And a lot of that gold could be fairly close to surface because it wasn't found.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always those things within a given area that the harder you hunt it and the more you learn about it, the more opportunities that exist there to actually find something of value.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons that I really say map it, because you start to ask yourself questions of, well, there's workings, in the creek. Was that something that was coming down from up above, or was it close to source? And what other areas, like in this, where you've got intrusives against your limestone or marble, you've got areas that you really should metal detect or take samples across and not always just go to look at the old workings. You want your old workings like an old adit, you want it on your map. You want to be able to see where things fit together, just like we were talking about. You know, you look at that area and go, shaft, 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 shaft. Okay, that represents something was going on there, definitely.
Well, another thing too is you notice how this fault right here goes right down a drainage, it looks like. That's a real common thing.
Yep.
And so,
well, this is probably faulted here somewhere on the edge of the intrusive, and the creek cut the intrusive. So that's why this would be a good area in here going toward the marble or limestone along the outside of the granite contact to be checking for mineralization.
Yeah, well, I was pointing out was a lot of times look at your drainages because they can quite often be a fault line.
Yeah, the drainage can definitely, I mean, if you got an area where every drainage lines up, every drainage on that whole side of the mountain goes almost south, more than likely those are the faults.
Especially if they're straight.
Yeah, those drainages more than likely are the faulting. And then you need to be looking for the cross faulting anywhere where you'd have this, where it would cross this fault line. If this is the fault line, you want to find those X's.
X marks the spot, huh?
In a way, it does.
Well, that'd be a good title for a video. X marks the spot. Huh?
Well, that there's some truth to that. Once you start seeing cross mineralization, there's a good chance you've got something there to work with, to really start paying attention to.
Yeah, if nothing else, if the liquid
map
was coming through here, it's going to do it better where it's broken in another direction.
Broken in multi-direction.
Yeah.
So, part of doing mapping of the area is really for your own information and to pull out the attention of where should I be looking, what contact areas and what should I be looking at instead of concentrating on just where the old timers might have worked. Here you definitely probably have placer because you've got some old drift holes and some header piles. You can definitely see the old rock pile workings of the old timers in certain places, and you have to wonder why. Did they get to bedrock and they only worked where the elevation, and that's something I didn't draw in here is elevation. You could do an overlay with elevations, but a lot of times the old timers would only work where they had enough elevation and water to wash out an area. And let's just say this was too deep for them to wash it out.
Yeah.
And they didn't have enough elevation drawage. So if the next stage is drawing in elevations and trying to figure out why did they do what they did, or why did they quit, or why didn't they do more? Because there's usually an answer to that question that you can answer once you start to learn about it.
And if it's not because they ran out of gold,
no, a lot of times it was not because they ran out of gold. It was because there was certain limitations that they could not achieve. They didn't have the manpower. They didn't have the water.
Yeah.
So every area that's ever had gold in it is definitely worth spending time on to understand it.
Well,
and a lot of times there's enough data out there that you can understand a lot before you ever even go to the ground.
Well, that's what I've noticed.
Use somebody else's data, at least to a certain extent.
I mean, you can get different kinds of maps like geologic maps up at the satellites and things. They'll show you.
Yep.
It's like, wow, that's an awful straight water course.
Yep.
That's one that just jumps at you.
Right. It's too straight.
Yeah. When you got a straight water course, something's keeping it straight. Otherwise, it'll meander.
Right. And if it's the fault, that's why. The reason it washed out is the bedrock was crushed up or broken up enough to wash it out. No, and that's kind of why I wanted to step through this, David, a little bit, because the more that you do stuff like this in the area you're working in, the more you start to question, why did they do this? Why didn't they do this? And you start to be able to answer a lot of those questions yourself because you're thinking about it. It puts it in a progression that's like, wait a minute, how come they didn't, go up here? What was the reason that they weren't looking along that? If that granite intrusive actually crossed that drainage, why weren't they perimetering that granite intrusive? Because those areas where you get those different rock contacts are the ones you want to be looking, especially as a metal detector or somebody that's just working the top of the ground. You want to, that's the stuff you want to go try to find, because you're going to find gold probably near surface or on surface.
Okay.
That was never found. But we've only had metal detectors really theoretically since the 70s.
Yeah,
and not everybody's not everybody's been everywhere with this equipment.
Yeah.
There's a lot more guys in the last few years picking them up and going out there and spending time. But out of that, what is it? 1 out of 10 that actually probably have an idea what they're even doing out there.
Well, not only that, but that are actually exploring anything but the obvious spots.
Stuff. Right. No, it'd be obvious to go down here and work around the creek and along the edges
down
these old workings and things. But take that to the next level and start looking for those differences in rock contacts. Oh, Gold Fiddler, in some cases, they took wagon loads of dirt many miles down to where they had water and could process.
If it was good enough.
If it was good enough, if they found that they had pretty good gold, sometimes they traveled that gravel down quite a ways.
Would they generally classify it first?
Yep, usually. Yep. Usually some kind of a grizzly they were throwing it across or something, and take just those gravels and carry them down to a creek or a place that they could wash them.
Would they usually take it down something like, say, 1 inch, or without water?
It may have been smaller than that.
Even smaller than that, dry?
Okay. Yep. I've actually got some old boards I pulled up out of a drift that were round holes, like Chinese sluice box. So that was a way of separating that size rock.
Cellulose like punch plate, huh?
Yep. A wooden punch plate.
Yeah. I've heard of that happening in places where
I'm sure there's roads that are I know even like our tailings from our wash plant, we would haul out and use it for gravel on the road. Well, there's probably some pretty good odds that there's a piece of gold laying on that road somewhere. If you took the time to go metal detect and play around, you never catch all of it.
Yeah, but you're going to find a lot more nuts and bolts.
Yeah, probably. And all kinds of stuff, wire and washers. And
yeah, that's the funny thing, Jeff. Back in the old days, it got pretty rough at times.
Well, there was limited amount of water, and a lot of guys, with different claims, and they either had to agree or it was a gunfight, unfortunately. Well, if they could, in some of the drainages, they would build a reservoir or something and get water up to where they could use water. But in some cases, it was really take that gravel somewhere where they could wash it.
Well, they just didn't have the kind of ease of pumping that we have nowadays.
Correct.
In many cases.
Yeah, they couldn't de-water worth of crap.
And they didn't have plastic liners to keep it.
They couldn't always, hold water in the gravel either. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to go out
nowadays, you can line it. We had that problem up at Dirty Goat where we could not hold water in the hill, and Bryce devised a pretty good way of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's things that you deal with.
Not a heck of a lot tricky. We're working on your 3-stage elution right now, and we'll have some results by next week's thing. Eva's getting better.
Yeah, you didn't miss too much. We just kind of were going over plans and things we're doing this winter a little bit.
It's been a cold week.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the first time it's been over 20 degrees in a week.
Yeah, it's been cold.
Yeah. It's right now it's what does that say? 28 or 26? I think it says 28. Anyhow, it's upper 20s now. That's been the warmest it's been in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we may get a few days above freezing here, but
yeah. Yeah, that's That's what it is. It's not going to be much, but that's why I'm going to get that fence post in. That's why I want to get it ready so that I can
Yeah, that'll go in.
drop that gate post in like,
Is that
Friday.
up at the ranch or
No, over here.
over here?
Church. Yep. Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, I think we saw that flume. Well, actually, what's left of that ditch.
They did a lot of that. A lot of places you can follow some of these ditches for 3-4 miles, and it's like just amazing. From one drainage to the next, or from high
Yeah.
on the drainage down lower, or
Yeah, I say when we were up there looking around, there was a ditch up there that he was talking about that it came over from the other side.
yeah, they ran water all the way around the mountain and put it somewhere else sometime. It was amazing what they did to get to gold.
Yeah.
You know, the amount of work and thought and time that had to go into it.
Well,
You know, there was a couple places here in Montana where they literally spent 1 or 2 years getting a ditch so that they could do a
Uh-huh.
drainage. You know, so they spent season after season working on that.
well, you also got to think they did a pretty good job of surveying in those routes because that's got to be all on a constant downgrade.
Yep. Within a 1% grade or something, they have to run that thing all the way out and around.
Yeah. When you're
Yeah,
going
it's impressive what
mile
was
after mile.
what was done to get, infrastructure to do what they did.
and
All
especially in the 1800s, it was
all-
mostly pick and shovel.
that's all it was, pretty much.
Yep.
They might have had a few slush buckets behind horses in a few spots where they could
Yeah.
use them, but most of it was all handwork.
Yeah.
Total handwork.
That's why they were tough.
Boy, yeah, their longevity in life probably wasn't quite as good as ours.
Yeah, but you give them our conditions, they'd be 150 or something.
Yeah.
Yep. No, it's some pretty wild stuff they did. This is why when people say, "Well, how did they build the pyramids?" Like one block at a time,
Yep. Over who knows how long,
like 40 years or something.
Right. Oh yeah.
A water race every 10 meters apart across an incline. Define water race.
Probably a little ditch where they kept going, bringing water down the drainage. Yeah, it's impressive sometimes to see what they actually did.
That sounds pretty good, Tricky. And did you try dissolving whatever the silver metal was in nitric acid or something? Working terraced slopes with ground sluicing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's third world, and they're still doing it the same way.
Well, yeah, there's some truth to that. That some of that's still going on.
Absolutely.
Well, and it would be doable in a lot of these drainages to do what these old guys did, as far as especially with drifting and that shafting and drifting would be very doable with 2 guys and some shovels and buckets and a piece of rope. It's just nobody wants to work that hard anymore.
I think he sold that claim, Jeff, and picked up another one, but we weren't able to go look at it because of weather. Standard 1 inch per 16 feet. That's a little steeper than 1%. Well, that's true, Tricky, but with the
Yeah.
amount you've got,
No.
you might want to take one bead and run nitric on it and see what happens, and then you got two unaffected beads
Yeah,
to play with.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And so that would, um, I like to have different equivalent samples and do them separately.
Yeah, just to see because then you don't lose them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you put them together, you're
Yep.
kind of screwed.
Yeah. And then you got to go back to zero if things go south on you.
Yeah. He's coming. Yeah, as long as Chris says I can do it, I can let him know.
In some cases, it was companies that, miners who got together and formed a company to build water ditches and water lines.
Consortiums.
Yep. Yep. They'd kind of, if they all the claims in the area would get together and figure it out. In some cases, it was actual water companies that did ditching companies actually built a ditch and then leased water rights or water to each of the miners based on cut of the gold or whatever.
Yeah, Jeff, I don't think Tricky has access to laboratory facilities very easily over there in the Philippines. Yeah, an XRF would be nice, but as I don't know whether he can get one or not. So we got to go back to the old school stuff to get a good idea. What does it dissolve in? What precipitates it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Tricky's somewhere in the Philippines there, out in the middle of the hinterlands.
Yeah, way away on an island somewhere.
Yeah. Where it's hot and humid. You know that spot of the Philippines?
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to do sometime is it'd be cool to get a book on the old, like borax speed tests and all that other stuff. Where that's the old timers, they could do a lot with some real simple stuff.
Flame tests, and they did a lot of things.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, they'd sit in a cabin during the winter and check and test rock. So far, I'm still up. But yeah, they did have ways of
blowpipes,
Yep.
borax beads, all kinds of stuff.
They did have ways of testing and trying to identify what they were doing.
Yeah. Got it. I presume that means he has the thing.
Oh yeah, he's got the blowpipes and stuff, I'm sure.
Hey,
Bunsen burners, and Lauren's got it.
Yeah. Hey, Lauren, you got a conduit bender? I might want to borrow it just for a little job. Are you talking tailings or are you talking waste dumps?
Probably.
Gold sluice. Tailings will look like sand.
Right. They're already been washed and let go.
Yeah, because if
waste dumps were just stuff thrown out on the ground as they dug the hole or went through rock.
Well, again, does it look like pure sand or does it have mostly rocks and stuff in it? Because if it's waste dumps and it doesn't have much gold, it means that they were able to successfully segregate it. The gold looks like this, the crap looks like that.
Right.
Works pretty good. When it comes to tailings, well, you shouldn't have much gold in it if your process was appropriate for the ore.
Well, some of them old processes or lack of water weren't that efficient. They may have only gotten 50% of the gold. So, as far as tailings go, I've seen tailings that nowadays would run profitably versus, some tailings like what I was creating, you'd have a hard time ever finding enough gold to pay for your diesel fuel.
Smallish rocks, like it's been classified. Is this placer or hard rock, Fiddler? Because if it's placer, then that would probably be tailings. If it's hard rock, placer. Okay,
Yep.
So placer tailings. Okay, it's been classified. It depends on the efficiency of the process and some of that is the actual process. Sometimes it's just the guy who's running the process.
Well, and in cases like here, I know they ran, like long toms, actual flumes of riffles and things, where multiple guys are shoveling into them. Well, their consistency going through that sluice was all over the place. So their efficiency at getting really good separation, they got the coarse gold in a lot of cases. They did pretty good with the coarse gold, but 80% of the fine gold may have made it right back into the tailings. I mean, like Chris said, there's some places where tailings have been reworked 3 times and they were profitable every time. Yeah, cemented gravels can be another issue. I would agree with you there, Chris. That not all of that gold and gravel was broke up enough to get it out of, get separation.
If you're employed by a company, would you be lax in your work? I wouldn't be, but some people do. And also, there's a significant number of employees that if you have high grade stuff, they will steal.
Well, yeah, most of the time the employees weren't allowed to go even within 20 feet of the sluice box or something.
Yeah,
and
sense.
There was usually a guard or somebody watching that fact. But if you were hired to shovel all day, that's what you did, I guess.
I don't know if you were here, but I heard that the Lost Dutchman's gold mine.
Yeah.
Actually, the guy who found the Lost Dutchman's gold mine was actually the fence for the employees at the nearby, I think it was Mammoth or whatever, but they had real high grade stuff. And so the employees, well, of course, they couldn't turn in gold.
Right.
So they give it to him.
And he'd go with it.
And he would, I got this gold mine up there in the hills. Look at this here good stuff. And so.
Yeah, well, maybe.
He'd buy it from them. Well, not only dedicated, but also cross-checked. And nowadays they use video cameras, metal detectors.
Boxes. Yeah. I mean, you can put, screens and locks on your sluice box now that, the owner has a key and maybe one employee or something like that, or the landowner and the miner each have a key, so that nobody's going in there until you're both there, both present.
Well,
but in the old days, yeah, they had dedicated guys that would do just that cleanup part or take that gold somewhere and clean it.
I know in some places you actually have to change clothes.
You were better off to never let the employees know how good you were actually doing.
Well, and as I said, there were places where you'd have to take your work clothes off, get naked, and cross over to another area where you put your street clothes on. And in the process, you go through a metal detector if it was gold, or X-ray if it was diamonds, things like that.
I mean, you can go look at some of the old pictures that were taken here, like over in Confederate Gulch and that. And I mean, and down at Alder and that they had it. Yeah, they had sluice boxes that ran for thousands of feet. They were fluming the creek over the top of them. And that's what was actually the sluice box too. They were shoveling and taking that dirt from the creek bottom and putting it up into that and flushing that whole thing down the drainage,
out of the way,
way down out of the way, so that they could get the depth, because otherwise they couldn't drain the water. Mm-hmm. So they literally had modified the creek to go up and around, and then they used that water for their sluicing as well. It's quite interesting at what level they went to get into some of these drainages.
What would you do during the spring melt? Would they still run through that?
It'd run all winter.
Mm-hmm.
That way they keep that water moving. But I imagine the spring melt was probably a nightmare when shit blew apart.
That's what I'm saying.
When the real heavy water come down in the spring.
You'd almost have to have a diversion up at the upper end to get some of that water out of your way.
Yeah. Probably, John. It makes sense.
I have no clue. Eva probably knows.
What?
Where did washing machines come from?
Yeah, John said a sluice box for clothes.
Washing machine?
Yeah. Whose idea?
I know they used to beat clothes on them. Well,
And
no, it's probably invented by a guy whose chick wanted something,
wasn't going to wash his clothes anymore.
Yeah. But
No, it's interesting to see how they did some of this stuff because the infrastructure and what they built was just amazing. And Confederate up there, I mean, some of that's 90, 100 feet deep that they actually dug it.
wow.
And it's like, how in the hell did they get rid of that water? But that's when you go back and look at the old pictures, you can see how they got rid of it. They got the water to go up and around them, and then they utilized it accordingly.
The first washing machines came about in 1760. So everybody knows.
1760. Okay.
Yeah.
The modern version first came out in 1908.
Are you saying
No.
they only have to clean up at the
No, sometimes the whole thing had sluice traps in it to where they would only clean it up when they shut the water down and diverted the water. So it may only got cleaned up once a month, or maybe it ran the whole season without getting cleaned up. I mean, some of the bedrock sluices that they did, like up here in the mountains, some of those, they only got cleaned up maybe twice a year, where they would divert the water and then dig out all the material out of those stone sluice boxes.
I don't recall it. Museum of Clean, little one. That's kind of a cool thing in Pocatello, the Museum of Clean.
The Museum of Clean.
Yeah. What's the guy's name? The author?
Don Aslett.
Don Aslett. He got out of college. When he was in college, he made money cleaning hotel rooms. He became very good. I mean, he's one of these people that's just, he knows how to make things efficient.
Yeah.
So that became his thing, was he'd start companies that would do industrial cleaning. And he's also a really funny writer. And so he started writing books like Clutter's Last Stand and things like that. And now,
Is There a Life After Housework? Amazing book.
and so he kind of retired, he sold off his businesses and he started what he called the Museum of Clean in Pocatello, Idaho. And like, you want to see the first vacuum cleaner?
Old apparatus.
1800s. It had 4 wheels and a bellows. And as you drug it around, the wheels, had
pump.
so it would go like this. And it was cool.
Well, thanks for being here, Tricky. And if
Yeah.
you make it back, great.
Take care, Tricky.
Yeah,
We'll have
safe.
some results next week, theoretically.
They were apparently originally wooden boxes with a plunger or with beakers in them back in the 1700s.
Yeah,
And
I
then
would
a couple of
imagine.
dudes
Uh-huh.
made a better model in the 1800s.
Well, of course, because of their wives. Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
considered one of the most important inventions for the advancement of women, by the way.
Because it freed up a lot of time, huh?
Yeah, because it freed up a lot of time.
Yeah, Jeff, they only did cleanups every so often. Pretty limited, actually.
Yeah.
And some of those, especially those old rock sluice boxes like up there, you think about it, they like those probably haven't been cleaned out in the last, 56, probably since the 1930s is the last time those were actually cleaned out. They very well could have gold in them again.
Well, I've always thought that if you had a drainage that has good gold running through it, find yourself a good flat piece of bedrock and then take a diamond saw and cut grooves in it.
Oh, yeah. You could do that. Yeah, you could create a bedrock sluice.
Nowadays you could.
I mean, that's really what these old guys did. I mean, this Chinese wall up here, that's what they did. They actually built, as they were digging it out for the drainage, because they wanted to mine the ground above it.
Uh-huh.
What they did is they literally built stone sluice box into the rock, into the bedrock, all the way up.
When you say a stone sluice, you mean you take stones?
Yes, they've actually made boxes that are
side
deep.
by side.
Yep, they made boxes.
Mhm.
And then when they flushed the whole valley out up above it, the gold got caught in all them traps going out the bottom of the valley.
Okay.
And
Makes
then they would divert the water when they had to so they could clean it.
Makes sense.
But they probably only did that like twice a year, where they actually shut the water, diverted the water and cleaned it. And it may have been only once a season. I mean, there's not a lot of
At
documentation.
the end of the summer,
right,
when
end
things
of
are
the
going
summer,
slow
yep.
anyhow.
Yep, the water slows down and everything, and there's less water.
Can't sluice
by
now. We don't
September.
have
Right,
enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Now it's time to clean that sluice box.
Yeah. That would make sense. Did you ever have to beat rugs outside, little one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did it too. I think
Definitely.
I've done it just a couple of times in my life, but it wasn't a normal
My
thing.
grandmother had rug beaters. She also had one of those round washing machines with the wringer attached to it.
On it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They work real well, actually. I
Yeah.
will say that.
Well, you could also theoretically, if you had smooth bedrock or something at the right gradient, you could like bolt the angle iron or
Oh, yeah.
something to it, and
Yeah.
create like
Yeah, you
Hungarian
could create
riffles,
traps.
you know. And that would, of course, have to be on private land. That'd be an interesting question. If you had a drainage that crosses a patented claim, could you go out on that patented claim and create a sluice on the bedrock so that as everything is washing through,
I don't know why
you're
you
picking
couldn't.
it up? I don't think there's any law against
I
that.
don't think so. As long as you're not stopping the water flow or anything, I don't know why you couldn't.
My near diverted the water around the falls in
Yeah.
1976. Wow.
Yeah.
Sweet. Just over near Indian Creek.
Yep.
They're going to probably have to rename that now. Native American Drainage.
Yeah, something. Yeah, I'm sure. Change the name after it's been that for 160 years.
And the people I know that are Native Americans, they don't mind the word Indian.
It doesn't hurt anything.
Yeah. It's like, what the heck?
Well, there's currently a raging debate going on the Reddit sub, Am I the Asshole? Because a white girl wants a quinceañera, and she says it's a really cool party, and her mother says no because cultural appropriation. Her dad says, no, it's a really cool party.
Well, didn't we used to have a thing that said imitation is the sincerest form of flattery?
Yeah.
Well, the funny part about that one is all the people that belong to the various cultures that have quinceañeras are fighting each other because half of them say, no, it is a deep tradition that is extremely important and significant, and I'd be offended. The other half are saying, are you kidding? Vamos, the more the merrier.
Yeah. That's like,
and they're all hating on the white people because, of course, they don't believe in Latinx or cultural appropriation. In the
There's
first place.
there's a drainage, Jeff, up here that they did the same thing. They actually cut a rock tunnel through the hill for about, I don't know, 500 feet. And that's where they put their sluice boxes, is behind lock gates, diverted the whole creek and all the gravels through.
Did they put like little channels in that rock tunnel to make it
No, they actually built sluice boxes into the tunnel, but they actually tunneled through the mountain to create a secure area that when they did the drainage above it, it all went through their locked area.
That sounds like an interesting plan.
yeah, Kodak. Yeah, let's say, what's the matter? If you're not partially Mexican, you can't eat tacos now?
All right, so here's
What's the
a
deal?
moral dilemma. The woman got a phone call. Her husband was at a business meeting, was away on business, and had gotten in a car accident. He
Okay.
was in the hospital, and they didn't know if he'd make it.
Yeah,
She's got an 8-month-old baby.
right?
She lives right next door to her niece, who's 17.
Yeah.
Okay. She tried calling several of her friends. They weren't home. She rushes next door to her niece, who's 17 and babysits occasionally,
Yeah.
saying, your uncle's in the hospital. I need to catch an airplane. He may be dying. Can you watch the baby for a couple of hours until my mother shows up?
Yeah. What's
Her
the problem?
niece asked her, well, how much are you paying me? And she was so nonplussed that she didn't even have time to think about it. And then her friend called and said, bring the baby right over. So she left without talking to her niece. And now her sister-in-law is yelling at her and saying that she's proud of her daughter for advocating for herself and that she should not have been rude and taken off.
Look, at this point,
Back
we're
to
negotiating a better price.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, yeah, that's just rude. When you got an emergency and somebody needs help, you help. That's the way it is.
That was normal etiquette, but
Yeah.
I don't know. We passed normal somewhere back a little ways.
Yeah. If you don't have that much class,
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with
Good
you
luck.
anyway.
Yeah, good luck with you, huh?
Yeah. It's like, the hell with it. You know, as they just, yeah. Some people don't understand the idea of community, because
Yeah.
to be a community, you have to have relationships and ties.
Yeah.
So that, you know, the
It
whole
helps
thing, you know,
everybody survive.
a friend in need is a friend indeed, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, then you wind up on your own when you need help.
Yep, pretty much.
And that is just,
Yeah.
you know, stupid. Now, if you have someone who's constantly getting help and isn't willing to work hard to kind of pay back the debts, hey, you know,
Yeah, that they don't usually last long.
yeah, they wind
You
up,
know,
you know,
it's
hey,
easy.
can you help me? No,
No, sorry, busy.
sorry
Well,
about that.
My personal reaction in that case would be to take the baby and worry about money later, but that's just me.
Well, yeah, and you wouldn't even worry about money.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you just like,
Do it
Oh,
because it's the right
yeah.
thing to do.
I would not worry about money if this was a one-time event. If this was somebody that consistently had emergencies or just like to show up at my doorstep with unlikely stories and hand me a baby,
yeah,
it would
well,
depend on how old the baby was. I like babies.
that's not exactly the situation, though. I agree. I say it's, you know, you need help, you help out. And then theoretically, if you need help, they'll help out.
Yeah.
If they don't, you don't help them again. I mean, and it depends on the situation. Like, for example, you guys were really busy this fall.
Mhm.
Okay. Lauren was really busy this fall.
No,
I wasn't as busy. So therefore it was much easier for me to, I got a couple days off here, not
Can
doing
do
anything.
that.
Sure. But if I said, hey, can you help me? You know, you'd have to say, well, how serious is it? Well, just some convenient stuff like, no, sorry, I'm busy. Were you at JB?
yeah, Jeff Baby, he's
Oh, where are you at?
Yeah.
Okay. Missing an H.
you know,
Yeah, I do that all the time too. I can't type worth a crap. So, yeah, and that's the thing it is too. When you're out in the hinterlands, you know, like in mining situations often are, you have to develop these relationships with your neighbors.
yeah, landowners, mine owners. There's always some form of community that you have to have there to make it all work.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, I was once
definitely.
working underground where we had a guy that was trapped. And I mean, he'd gotten under a finger raise with a loader, and that loader was buried to the middle of the back axle. And he'd gotten out of the seat and halfway across the back before he got him pinned in. And I mean, we had a bunch of guys there. They could only get 3 guys working on him at once. And they'd have to dig a hole, get to the rock that was pinning his legs in, chip it away with an axe. And when the muck pile would shift, after they got the loader out, they took out another 500 tons of rock.
Yeah.
You know, so they weren't, you know, they literally, the guy who was chipping on it head and shoulders into a hole in a muck pile, you know, they had 2 guys holding his belt. It would start a shift. They would throw him, drag him out and throw him away, and then cover the loader operator with their bodies. And we just had a line of people waiting to jump in if they got tired or needed help or got hurt
Do
or
what
whatever.
you got to do.
You know?
That's one of them situations where you do what you need to do.
Yeah. And if you don't have that kind of a interrelationship, then when you're the guy stuck under the muck pile,
Yeah.
you're going to be going, help. And everyone's going like, wow, sucks to be you, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
right.
You know?
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy.
Yeah. No, that's not a good place to be. Well, that's why they say in combat that you know, you don't fight for your country, you fight for the guy next to you.
Yeah.
You know? And that's, I suppose it's pretty much similar in any really high risk endeavor. You know, high steel, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
That would be my guess.
You take care of your guys.
Yeah. And if somebody
because
doesn't,
they're going to take care of you too. I mean, it's a two-way street.
and if they don't, they leave.
Yeah. Well,
One
yeah,
way or
if
the
you,
other.
yeah. Well, if you're not comfortable working, especially hanging steel or something with the guy on the other end of that beam, he ain't going to last long. Because you have to be able to put your faith in that other guy that knows that he isn't going to let go of it if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Them logs are the same way. You got to be working with somebody you can trust. If it goes bad, you don't want somebody just to kick themselves out of the way and not worry about you.
Yeah. Elkhorn, Montana, Jeff. Those mountain ranges there.
Yeah. Up by us here.
Yeah. But yeah, that's I'm saying. If you can't be trusted,
No,
people won't help you.
Hey, Gold Pan Dan.
Hey, Dan. Ooh, I think I got the dimensions on that plate. Check me on this one, Lauren. It was 10 by 5 and 15/16 with a 1/2-inch hole countersunk directly in the middle of that. So the stationary plate, I'm pretty sure, was 10 by 5 and 15/16. I imagine if it was 6, it wouldn't hurt, but yeah. Anyhow.
Probably what it was meant to be. It just didn't quite make the cut.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
They're printing them out, making
Well,
them
the
by
other thing
stacks.
is the backing plate may be 6 inches wide. So when they clamp it together, then you need that 1/16 of an inch
just to get in.
to get the slit.
Yep.
Yep, exactly. Gold Pan Dan. If you're near that plate, Lauren, if you can check that before the end of the thing, that'd be cool. I know the width is right. I'm pretty sure the length was 10. But yeah, that
That a jaw plate for the crusher?
yeah, it's the fixed plate. And because he's got some plate. Yeah,
Good
1/4-inch thick. Yep, exactly.
Some good hard steel, some T1 or something.
Whatever, he's got some stuff laying around. So, yeah, we may have to see about doing a little work on that RC46 this winter too. Get that jaw
Tightened up a little
bit. Both the side plates are wearing out, so you can get around now, or
so you have the pieces getting around and then don't want to go through the rollers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
just probably take it all apart and clean it, tighten
the toggle's
everything
no
out.
doubt worn, so we might need to make a new toggle plate to tighten that up a little.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't know how much air it blows per minute, Jeff, but it was what was it running? About 100 pounds an hour. I think it was 125 pounds an hour air transport. There may be a formula, you can figure that out. See, he's got some good hard face stuff.
Boy, cool.
Yeah, that'd be some good stuff. But yeah, the never really measured the volume of air. My guess would be it's kind of in the neighborhood of a shop vac.
It might be better than that.
I don't know.
There's some airflow going through one.
Yeah.
I suppose you could put some kind of gauge on there to figure out the airspeed coming out.
Correct, Dan.
And calculate.
That is correct. Run them parallel to the long dimension.
There'd have to be a calculation you could do if you could figure out the airspeed or the velocity.
Yeah, I'm sure it's
because then you can measure and figure out a calculation as to how much air per minute or whatever is coming through that thing.
Yeah.
They move quite a bit of air.
Yeah, it moves a fair amount. Yep. Yeah, that
For something that the only thing you have is the intake and a little air gap along your bearing plates.
mhm.
You don't have a lot, basically just your feed is the air.
Yeah, that's the idea. It lifts the dust. What I was doing there, it was probably going up about 2 to 3 feet, and then horizontally about 8 feet, and then going into the tank. I would think once it gets past the classification stage, it should pretty much go.
It'll carry through the pipe,
Yeah.
provided it doesn't plug moisture or something like that.
Well, if you get too much dust in the
Restriction.
flow, the weight is going to slow down your airflow to some extent, but not
Right.
too much. Yeah, that would. You could even just take a little paddle wheel basically and see how many revolutions per minute it was going.
You're right. It's something, a counter or something. Yeah.
You make
figure
these
it out.
little air
Yeah.
wind meters.
Yeah.
And you could just put it. Just don't run any rock at that time, and just
Right.
put it in there.
Just see what the airflow is.
Yeah, they all kinds of weird stuff nowadays. It's pretty cheap.
I'm sure it's calculate. You can figure it out.
Yeah. As I say, it's not too bad. And the moisture content was critical. If it got too much moisture, then it would tend to plug up on you as the particles would stick in the tubing and make a plug. The Stutenroth is less susceptible to that, but even then, the wear bars in it have gaps, and at the bottom it's just got a little gap, like I don't know, half an inch or something.
Yeah.
And boy, that'll plug up too.
I wouldn't doubt it.
And boy, you don't want to be sticking a thing in there to clear it out while it's running.
No.
That Stutenroth, that's a beast, man. I don't know how much that rotor weighs.
A lot.
But I'm betting between the shaft and the impactors and the
Rock
thing,
Butcher,
at least 200 pounds.
You didn't miss too much.
Food coma. Oh man, some people are just so lightweight.
Staying inside and overeating, is that the problem?
If you eat more food, the pain will keep you awake. You just have to have a plan. That's all there is to it, man. Discipline. We didn't get much done this week of any consequence due to weather and this and that. We got the lab stuff all set up at Lauren's, and we're ready to rock and roll. We got a couple things in process there with no results available, and Eva's back is getting better. So that's basically all the news. And of course, we have amazing plans for next year.
Yeah.
We'll see what the amazing reality is or not. Well, I sure failed to.
Yeah, we're gonna be a day by day thing.
My target was 2 tons per week.
Yeah,
didn't make it. Got about 1.
At least you had a target, right?
Yeah, I got about 1 ton per week. But yeah.
Well, it's not your fault that a week is only 7 days long.
Yeah.
Dan says, glad to hear you're doing better, little one.
Yeah, it goes by really fast sometimes and sometimes really slow. But boy, this summer went by fast. I don't know. It started out cold and wet, and the next thing it's over.
Well, my problem was just when it was getting to be starting season, then the damn nosebleed started.
Yeah,
that
that's
took
right.
like
You had a
3
couple
weeks
weeks of that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Uh-oh. I see something behind me.
Wood produced electricity. Yeah,
I guess using it for the burner would be my guess.
Yeah. Or go back to the old way of creating steam to run the generators.
How about a gasifier? Can we talk about gasifiers?
Yeah, there you go. Well, we'll let Eva in here, guys.
Hi, guys. I will make this short and sweet so you guys can get back to men talk. Besides my back,
You got your pillow
Hi
on there?
everybody. Yep.
Okay.
Wood produced electricity. A steam generator. I don't know. When I think of wood produced anything, I think of like
Lights are
gasifiers and things, I guess. Hi, Jeff.
I installed today.
A gasifier
Right on
driven
the
power
corner of the
plant.
building there.
I mean, gasification definitely can work in some cases. I've seen some interesting stuff on it. Not quite sure exactly how, since,
Right above the doorway.
you know,
light fixture needs replacing.
believe it or not, I tend not to do the mechanical things. It's not due to lack of abilities, it's because that's a dude thing. I'm a sexist.
Yeah, stuff like that.
No, I don't have any TXF coins, Kodak. Hi, Gold Pendant. Well, I'll tell you, this whole FTX thing, it is looking more and more like the soap opera of the year. There was a few articles around after he apparently did an interview where he was saying all kinds of absolutely scandalous things. You know, like that he was just faking the woke nonsense and all of that. And you know, I haven't looked around lately, but maybe somebody around here has heard. He was scheduled to speak at a conference with Zuck the Cuck, Janet Yellen, and Volodymyr Zelensky. A $2,499 per ticket event. I believe it was being sponsored by the New York Times on November 30th. I don't know whether that's still happening or not, but it would be interesting. 32 billion gone.
I don't know what's going on, but I know.
But yeah, I'm wondering whether that's even still going to go on. And in other news, J.P. Morgan, our favorite five-time felons who have paid zillions of fines for all kinds of financial manipulation, just got approved by the trademark and copyright type people for a new cryptocurrency wallet name. They're apparently planning to get into crypto. Now, isn't this nice? Well, the goddess has to wonder how it is that J.P. Morgan and Bank of America and the rest of them can repeatedly be found breaking financial laws of various types, repeatedly be fined what sound like huge amounts of money, but when you actually do the math in proportion to the wealth that they got from their financial mismanagement, turns out to be very, very small percentages. And they're still actually allowed to participate in the financial world. It's very strange. It really is, you know? And yeah, Clinton money. Have you seen that lovely meme that's running around? It shows a picture of that Sam Bankman-Fried person sitting and laughing with Bill Clinton. And it's supposedly a Facebook post written by Hillary that says that, you know, they're mourning his future suicide and he will have been a very good friend of theirs. One has to wonder about that. Meanwhile, I was looking over on Zero Hedge, of all places, today. Every once in a while, I go over to Zero Hedge, and apparently we have 9 to 12 more months before the bottom falls out in this giant everything bubble that's been going on. We're near its lowest level since the 2008 financial crisis, so let's see what they have to say about that. During the COVID-19 pandemic, really, consumers socked away an unprecedented amount of cash thanks to government stimulus and a lockdown economy. There was such a surplus, people were able to also pay down debt, buy new appliances, and take vacations once draconian lockdowns were lifted. And of course, businesses raised prices and hired more workers to meet the flood of demand. Now that we're enjoying inflation while wages have struggled to keep up, the question becomes how long can consumers maintain this level of spending with their excess savings, which was estimated at 1.2 to 1.8 trillion heading into quarter 3 of this year. Around 9 to 12 months, according to the Wall Street Journal. What's more, consumers have been loading up on credit cards to supplement their income. A brief history of recent savings trends via the journal. In 2019, before the pandemic hit, households saved 8.8% of their disposable income. That savings rate jumped to 16.8% in 2020. Well, it is kind of hard to spend money when you're locked in your house, I suppose. The highest annual savings rate on record as government stimulus and unemployment benefits left many consumers flush with cash but few opportunities to spend. In 2021, the savings rate moderated to 11.8% and has fallen further during 2022. The rate has been below 4% for 7 straight months. And in September, it stood at 3.1%, near its lowest level since the 2008 financial crisis. We are spending more and we are saving less. Funny how that works. What's more, there are signs consumers aren't using their savings to pay down credit card debt like they used to. Really? You think? With the Federal Reserve Bank of New York reporting credit card balances increased 15% year over year in the third quarter, the largest increase in more than 2 decades. Delinquencies rose across all income groups. According to J.P. Morgan, at this rate, excess savings could be entirely spent by the second half of next year. Now, the goddess doesn't know about any of you, but the last casual poll I took, most people don't have any savings left at all. I wonder who has excess savings. Goldman economists estimate households have depleted around 25% of their excess savings. You know, that's another question. Since when is any savings excess? And we'll have spent around 60% of it by the end of 2023. The growth boost from strong balance sheets is probably mostly behind us. But elevated wealth levels will provide a backstop to spending for households that are hit with a negative economic shock, they wrote last week. Elevated wealth levels. Well, now, analysts say a feature of this holiday spending season will be the divide between high-income households that still have savings and low-income households that have spent most of their rainy day funds and are being squeezed by food, gasoline, and shelter inflation. Economists at the Federal Reserve last month said households in the top half of the income distribution held the lion's share of excess savings in mid-2022 at $1.35 trillion. And the lower half of income distribution held about $350 billion. Billion with a B versus trillion with a T. Now, the goddess does have to wonder about that 1.535 trillion. How much of that is in actual assets that are held, like silver and gold? How much of it is merely fiat debt instruments? The same with the 350 billion, of course. According to Joseph Bruselas, chief economist at RSM US LPP, it's going to be an upscale holiday season with strong spending in luxury names, experiential travel, upper-end resorts, and a more modest holiday season in bottom income quintiles. How lovely. Speaking of that more modest holiday season, a lot of people are contemplating Victorian Christmases. The kind where you got one orange and a pair of socks in your stocking because they can't afford anything else, you know? Yeah, eggs do cost $6 a dozen in some places, Gold Pandan. Ours haven't gone quite that high yet, but they're getting darn close, I'll tell you that. But unlike the UK, our grocery stores are not yet putting limits on eggs. So that's a good thing. We're not getting limits on eggs yet. We shall see. And apparently, CME's CEO, Terry Duffy, recalled his first meeting with Sam Bankman Fried in March and told him to his face he was an absolute fraud. Really? Well, of course, he was an absolute fraud, and anybody with any sense would have seen that. But, it is rather funny coming out of the chairman of CME. Seriously, it's quite funny coming out of the chairman of CME. That's just bizarre. That is a case of the pot calling the kettle black right there. It really is. In gold and silver news this week, a lot of people are finally beginning to talk about the fact that there's going to be a quite impressive shortage in physical silver next year. This is something that the Silver Institute keeps track of, and at some latest symposium, they gave their paper on the issue. And apparently, physical silver demand is up across the board in all sectors except for photography. Gee, I wonder why. And physical demand is showing the greatest increase in the consumer sector because people are actually going to their LCS or to websites online and they're buying physical silver, which is a very, very good thing. Yeah, Jeff, right now up here, eggs at Walmart for the 5 dozen case are running a little over $4.75 a dozen. They've gotten a lot higher than they were. It's a little bit bizarre. I do get it, of course, because as we all know, there's been a whole lot of weird stuff going on in the poultry supply chain. But when it comes to gold and silver, every single year, the Silver Institute puts out a nice report on silver. And every single year, they highlight the fact that the demand for physical silver is growing, and there's usually a shortage. There's a gap between the amount of physical silver that's actually out there and the projections for the following year. It's been getting worse every year. This year, it's going to be quite a few million ounces, quite a few 100 million ounces. The overall demand for physical silver is going to be 16 to 20% higher next year than it is this year. Part of that is a tremendous increase in consumer demand. Part of it is India is on track to just about double their annual silver imports to the country. And not all of that is jewelry either. Part of it is because of the growing green revolution and green technology thing, which we all know is a boondoggle of unprecedented proportions. But, if it drives precious metals, I'm all in favor of the idea. Whether this will actually lead to some decent price discovery is anybody's guess at this point, because there are too many industries and too many players in this little game that do not benefit from price discovery in any precious metal, much less silver, because it has so many applications across the board. Right now, the serious gold bulls are looking at about 2,500 for the middle of next year. They're looking at a little over 2,000 for the end of this year. Depending on how badly the economy goes belly up in the next month or so, we may find out more. I don't know if we're going to get that good. What a lot of people are beginning to focus on again is the silver gold ratio, because we want to see that come down. The last I checked, it was about 83 to 1. And historically speaking, geologically speaking, it's right around 19 or 20 to 1 in terms of reserves and things going on in the mining world. In terms of historic mining, what comes out of the ground, it's about 11.2 to 1. Now, the ancient Egyptians, in their economic system, had gold and silver at a 1 to 1 ratio. William Jennings Bryan was pushing for a 16 to 1 ratio. What we should hope to see for economic purposes would be a ratio right around 35 or 40 to 1. Whether we get there anytime soon is, again, anybody's guess. And we had a good discussion about that on Wall Street Silver on Reddit, because people were trying to understand, with all these terrible economic indicators, why are the charts looking so bad? Why isn't silver going to the moon? Why isn't gold going to the moon, for that matter? And as I pointed out, fiat monetary systems don't have rules. Sound money systems have rules. The reason governments like fiat systems, and fiat being debt instruments, is because they have a whole lot less rules to worry about. And you should never expect rational behavior from irrational people. At the same time, you should never expect the charts in a manipulated environment to reflect anything approaching reality, because they usually don't. Yeah. It should be about 16 to 1 is where we want to get it down to at some point. I would like to see about 16 to 1 as a final goal. I think in the meantime, if we can get it to 35 to 1 in the negative economic environment we have now, we may be able to push for sound money standard again, which kind of would be a good thing at this point. By the way, Kodak says keep it down and back. And by the way, where is my sign language interpreter?
Discussing the future of the world.
Ha!
Okay, we'll try and do it more quieter.
Well, believe me, I don't think you're missing anything, Kodak. Trust me on that one. I'm not listening either. But it has occasioned a lot of discussion on Wall Street Silver and elsewhere because, of course, on one hand, we love it when silver and gold to some extent are nice and low, because that means you get to back up the truck and you can pile up the shiny. On the other hand, we want to see price discovery at some point. And this is something that a lot of people have trouble grasping. For the last 50 years or so, as a matter of fact, it started before I was born, but I didn't get subjected to it because the people I grew up with educated me. The government, education, and banks have done everything they could to miseducate people on what money is and what fiat is and how money works. It is something they have deliberately miseducated people on. There's many, many people in the world who actually think that a dollar bill is money. There are many, many people in the world that actually do not realize that fiat currency is a debt instrument. It is not an asset. And it is to the advantage of banks and governments that people see fiat and crypto and central bank digital currencies as money. Because as long as people continue to buy in to debt instruments being money, as long as people continue to buy into the idea of all this easy credit and free lunch and debt slavery and credit slavery, they can continue to steal from us. If people see physical gold and silver as an excellent investment and a hedge against inflation, then they might start seeing it as actual money again And that would be a really big
Yeah.
problem
Yeah,
for a whole lot of people.
3 weeks later or something. You know,
Yeah.
we agreed that your experience here was not
Yep.
what we wanted, right? So yeah,
I remember those days.
no copay or anything. Bills been canceled. And I mean,
I don't know where my sign is, Kodak. I shall put my sign up. I'm sure it's around here somewhere. But you see, all these people have totally and completely abandoned me, of course.
I've been doing the dishes this week.
I did them today.
You did?
My doing a few of the dishes once with a broken back trumps you doing them for the last week. We all know this. Yeah, I know, Kodak, but everybody thinks it's a free lunch. You'd be amazed at how many people that actually seem to think this way. I saw an interesting demonstration of that on another sub on Reddit that actually purports to be conservative. We were discussing the issue of Lord Malarkey still taking applications for that student loan forgiveness thing, the student debt forgiveness, and saying they were starting to process those applications and pre-approving them in anticipation of the glorious day when the courts tell them they can give away a bunch of free money illegally. Okay? And people who are otherwise conservative, who otherwise have conservative views, were actually not seeing the difference between the PPP program, which I wasn't a fan of either, and the student debt forgiveness. Now, the reason PPP came about during the pandemic was because the governments decided to lock down the economy and prohibit people from conducting their business. Constitutionally speaking, the government is not allowed to deprive you of life, liberty, or property without due compensation. If the government tells you that you are not allowed to participate in your legal business activities, then it only makes sense that they should compensate you for the money you lose because of their idiocy. Okay? That's fine. PPP was done entirely wrong. What should have happened there should have been far more tight restrictions to try to keep the fraud down to a rational level. And I would have liked to see a program where your PPP loan actually went to, say we had our business open and I contacted the government and said, well, because we can't do business, we still have to pay our business insurance. I would have liked to see the government cut a check directly to my insurance company. No money in my pocket, just pay the insurance company, you know? Now, here's the thing. These people could not see the difference between a government action stopping you from making a legal income, stopping you from doing your legal business, being compensated by a law being passed, and you deciding on your own to enter into a loan contract, a loan agreement to get a $100,000 degree in comparative underwater basket weaving. They could not see why this student loan debt forgiveness thing should not happen. It should not happen because, first of all, generations of people have paid off their damn debts on their own. Second of all, nobody was holding a gun to these people's heads and saying, if you don't go to college and sign this loan agreement, you're going to get arrested and persecuted and fined and everything else. And third, well, the goddess is of the opinion, and this is probably a very unpopular opinion, that if somebody is going to take out a loan to do something, like get a magic piece of paper, it would probably be a good idea to investigate getting said magic piece of paper for the lowest possible price, first off. Second of all, it would probably be a great idea to get a magic piece of paper that will actually be a good return on your investment. Like a job in something that will actually make you money. That would be nice. So you're not working in Starbucks because you have a PhD in medieval poetry. Just saying. And third, during the whole pandemic lockdown thing, when you were being given twice the normal amount of unemployment and stimulus checks up the wazoo, and your payments had been halted and your interest had been halted, it might have been a really good idea to take that money and maybe pay off some of your debt. Now, if our Congress actually decided to pass a law saying, okay, we're going to give all these college students $10,000, $20,000. Some of them will get 10,000, some will get 20,000. Since that is Congress passing a law until somebody brings that law before the Supreme Court and has it declared unconstitutional, you're stuck with it. What should happen at that point is not a check or a money transfer showing up in your bank account. What should happen at that point is the federal government directly contacting the banker you have the loan with and giving them the $10,000 or $20,000. Now that seems to be a very radical notion here. But here you had a bunch of grown-up people who could not see the functional difference between something you decided to do yourself that was probably a really stupid idea that you should not be paid back for, and somebody else forcing you to give up your legal income, compensating you for that. They could not see the difference between the two. One is a free lunch. One isn't at all, I mean, that's just the way it is. Hi, blind dude. Yeah, underwater basket weaving is just about what it is. But this is the thing, is there are people that actually consider themselves, yeah, the money is supposed to go straight to the lender, but that's what they were originally saying. But a lot of these people are thinking that they're actually going to be getting the money back in their bank account because that's what they're being told by their colleges. Their colleges are telling them because, it's going to go to the same account that your Pell Grants and your FAFSA and everything else goes to. And they're talking about not spending it on their debts either, which is not surprising. But the thing is, it's not something that should happen in the first place. And the way it's happening is unconstitutional anyway, but, this is nothing new for this particular administration. Sad, but true. But there are more and more people that, because money has ceased to be a physical thing, they do not understand money. And this greatly benefits our government. This greatly benefits banks. This greatly benefits everybody but us. Because these are the same people who don't understand that inflation is taxation. These are the same people who don't understand that saying inflation is going to get back to the normal level of 2%. Well, if we had sound money, we wouldn't have that problem either. Yeah. At any rate, the fundamentals for gold and silver are actually looking really good. And it was really encouraging to me to see people other than the Silver Institute, Reuters, and Bloomberg and the like discussing the fact that, yeah, there is a physical silver shortage coming up. And yeah, physical gold is looking a little bit tight as well. This is good. This is a good development that somebody other than people who, like us, are actually talking about this. In other unrelated and fairly ridiculous news, you may remember that several months ago they were talking about a potential railroad strike, and then Lord Malarkey swept in and saved the day at the 11th hour, and they said there was a deal and all was well, and the whole story got memory hold. Well, the whole story that got memory hold is beginning to come creeping back out again, because the latest 60-day deadline, the latest deadline is running out real soon. Looks like around December 5th at the moment. And there are now, instead of just one union saying, no, we don't want this deal, there apparently are now 3 or 4 unions that are saying, well, we're not entirely sure about this deal, so we're probably going to end up striking. For those who are unaware of what this will mean, the last figure I saw said that if you shut down the rail system in the United States for 72 hours, it would crash the entire country. And I wouldn't disbelieve that one either. I mean, that did not come from your normal doomsday people. That came from math geeks. And I actually kind of trust math geeks, because math geeks usually don't turn out to be doomsday tinfoil hatters. So, yeah, it looks like we're going to be having some difficulties in that direction, because there have actually been a few murmurs, and those murmurs are a very faint whisper compared to the panicked discussion that is going on behind the scenes on various trade and industry boards. Because supply chain people and logistics people are now in the 11th hour of planning for a rail strike. And this isn't just your usual storyboard planning. I've seen a lot of that. This isn't your usual back of the napkin. Okay, well, let's just go through and update the plan. We have Plan 27Z for in case one railroad strikes. This is, all right, I'm making my phone call planning, So one kind of has to wonder about that. Wow. Cutthroat, that's pretty good. 16,000. And yeah, I mean, it's funny. It is just amazing to see some of the figures that are actually out there, because a lot of us know. I mean, those of us that are on the smaller industry end of the industry know. We don't have economy of scale in what we're doing here. And yeah, I bet if I actually did the math on what that dude back there has pulled out of the ground and what I have turned into beads in the lab, oh, I'd say that was some pretty damned expensive gold. I really would. I don't even want to know, because it would probably give me nightmares. But yeah, it looks like we might be having a railroad strike around December 5th. If we do not, the best case scenario here, some of these unions are asking that their railroad people get paid more than your average doctor in a small town, your GP that you go to for your regular appointments. So this is going to become a tremendous, horrific cost driver for supplies and everything going into 2023. What we're seeing on the trucking side of it is there is indeed a diesel shortage. That whole, 25 days of diesel left, what that actually is there is a real bottleneck right now in the distillates that they use to make diesel, and the distillates they use to the things they refine to make heating oil as well. a lot of the things apparently, now mind you, I am no expert on this whole fractionalization and distillation stuff that happens to make fuel. But apparently, we had that one refinery several months ago that burned up, and the EPA still hasn't okayed them to get back to work. And we had another one that burned up last year that they're not going to bother opening again anytime soon because they can't get parts. And apparently, a lot of the same distillates that are used to make diesel and heating oil are also used to make gasoline, and a lot of them got diverted to make gasoline. So normally they try to keep a nice little cushion of 40 to 60 days of these distillate thingies hanging around. And at the moment, we only have 25 days of these distillate thingies hanging around. And well, since we don't have the capacity to do much with them anyway, and well, but that's not looking good either because already that supply chain in some parts of the country is implementing new order systems and new reservation systems to make sure that what they can get is distributing itself as efficiently as possible. Because at this point, there's no wiggle room at all in that part of the supply chain. If we get one more weird, coincidental, stupid bullshit thing happening, that is going to make diesel temporarily, hopefully, kind of spontaneously disappear in a few places. You know, that's just the way it works. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just there are a lot of things going on, and this lot of things going on is going to get a whole lot worse over the course of the winter. So I am just going to go out and get a turkey this week and make some more canned cranberry. We've already canned up a couple of cases of cranberry. I'm going to can up another case of cranberry because it's that time of the year. Bye bye.
Oh. Where are you at, Dan? Ugh. Oh. Actually, pretty well centered.
Is it? Not too bad. All right.
All right, you
South
can put
Dakota.
your own sign back, guys. You didn't even bother to put my sign up before you took off. I see how y'all are. The goddess is
We didn't
utterly
think about
unappreciated. I break my back and nobody cares.
All right. Back to mining.
Rapid City, huh?
Rapid City.
South Dakota?
Yep.
Cool. I like South Dakota.
Sounds like fun to me, Chris.
Hey, blind dude.
Hey, blind dude. Well, if you don't build refineries, then you can't use oil.
Yeah.
And as usual in this country, well, blind dude.
Yeah, next week.
That's probably better than any game I've ever bowled. But, you just got to be self-sufficient if you can be. And we can definitely be self-sufficient and stuff like this. You just got to get the damn regulators out of the way. We'll see how they hit it at minus 30, huh? Oh, goodness. Yeah, I'm concerned about cascading system failures.
Well, and I think that's a real thought is, one thing takes down something else, and then that takes down three more things.
And for want of a nail, a horseshoe was lost.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep, for want of a nail. Exactly.
Yeah. And I see a lot of that happening. and the system is so complex that you really can't predict what's going to happen. You know,
Definitely cutthroat. I'd agree with that. But, it costs money to make pipelines and, put in storage capacity too. And the fact is the regulation you have to go through to do that. Nobody wants to invest the money because of the regulation
well, it's not only that, but the uncertainty
of
Look-
what happens
look
in the
at that.
future.
What
Yeah,
was
I
what was that
agree.
pipeline they shut down that came from Canada?
Yeah,
It had been approved.
I know.
Keystone.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, been approved, and now let's backtrack.
As a businessman, how are you supposed to make business investments when the
Or ask
permits
people
that you're
to-
given get revoked at will?
after the fact.
You
Yeah.
know,
Well, mining is the same thing. A lot of these mines have ran against the same thing.
oh,
Yes.
absolutely. Well, I say, what's that saying? If it can't go on, it won't.
No.
Yeah, and I think we're in that situation here. It's getting so non-functional
That it'll
that it's
implode.
just going to stop functioning to some extent, and then adaptability and preparedness and stuff like that are going to be your critical factors to
Well, it's going to be a safety line
survival.
at least for a while.
I think just getting through is going to be a success all in its own.
Yeah.
There's going to be some people who are going to they're going to manage to play the crisis and do real well. There's always some people that figure it out, and we shall have to see. Well, I hope it doesn't go out here because that's how we heat the building, blind dude. So then the building I'm going to be in, if it goes out for very long, we're going to wind up with broken water pipes, which then does something else. Boy, can you imagine in Ukraine? Wow.
Yeah.
That's,
Going into winter and not having
Yeah.
power would not be a good program.
We can get some wood, but you can't exactly just pile a bunch of wood on the floor and make it work. Say in this building here, it's not going to work. Various locations we can heat. I mean, Lauren's going to put in a wood stove over in his shop, for example.
Yeah, we cut a lot of wood here that toward the end.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of things like that. Also, the top of the hill place, we have the boss has the timber rights to that too. So we can log that to a certain extent. But I don't know if anyone's even given too much thought to how much damage will be done if the power goes out for a significant period of time in the middle of winter.
Well, some of it'll take years to repair.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm just looking at this building here.
Especially based on how we've gotten used to all these conveniences.
Around here, the steady livable temperature is pretty cold. But again, you have to be able to survive. There's a lot of things you need to survive besides just shelter. I can go in my truck, and we can live out there. Ooh, nice, Slick Willie. Yep.
Not good.
Yeah, I say, and that's just a temporary dislocation. But if
think of it in terms of about 2 months.
What do you think?
6 months or
this building right here, after 3 days at these temperatures, the plumbing would be shot.
Yep, probably. Frozen solid and cracked and blown.
Yeah, exactly. So then you've got
it's unlivable.
a non-livable building for other reasons. Yeah. That's a good idea, blind dude, especially the several plans.
Yeah, right. Backups to backups.
Yeah. Because, you should have several options. And
if you can,
the term fallback option comes in. It's like, okay, this is plan A.
Right.
But if that becomes non-functional, what's plan B? And if that becomes non-functional, what's plan C? For example, in my camper there, I took a little barbecue grill and cut the legs down and everything so it fit under the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, you can't heat something like that with wood because you'll kill yourself, carbon monoxide. However, you can heat stones outside
And bring them
in a fireplace and then put them in that. And that will, again, keep you warm enough with the proper, and we have some 0-degree sleeping bags, which inside the camper would probably be adequate even at like 20 below,
Oh yeah.
you know.
No, you can survive more than you think you can, but it's not, you know, the idea of even prepping doesn't sound that enjoyable.
Well,
You know, granted, we're doing it. We're all doing it.
what happens?
You know, but and redundancy as a, you know, being a miner and things, redundancy is your best friend. You know, if you know you break apart, you have two on the shelf or in the trailer or with you. So, or a backup pump or whatever. You do redundant things that if you go up for the weekend and you're working, you definitely don't want to have to come back 80 miles to town.
But what would happen, let's say in Helena here, if the power would go out for that, how many of the homes that are sitting in town here do you think have an ability to keep the water from breaking the pipes?
Not that many.
You know, I'm thinking that
because we
over
as
half
much wood as we have here, not that many people heat with wood anymore because it's time and effort.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. It's not that it's more expensive. It probably isn't based on, you know, gas prices nowadays and electricity, but it's work and people do everything they can to avoid work. So,
well, and you also have a lot of people that really can't do that much work. But I'm guessing half the buildings in Helena would become unlivable
within
a
given
week
amount
without
of time,
power.
Yeah. That's probably true, Dan. Is, you know, you look at a simplified life is, you know, that less complication is quite efficient actually. But we've gotten so far from that, you know, we turn on light switches and things and don't think twice about it.
No.
But try to go without power. I mean, the other day we had a frozen water line and we didn't have enough water in the house to more than make coffee, you know, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, there's a hole in my plan because I was going to have some 5-gallon jugs of water sitting in the back room just for problems like that. And I didn't do it, you know, but it's like, damn, can't he make a cup of coffee right now? Well, I'm thinking about this, you know, what I got to, where I'm going to find the frozen spot.
Yep. And as I say, it just, modern society is so dependent upon stuff happening that when things start not happening on a random basis, it's hard to tell where it's going to wind out. Yeah, I understand, Cutthroat.
Yeah, that's a problem.
I have a feeling though, when things hit the fan, assuming they do, they're not going to be out there wandering around the hills too much.
Yeah, they might not be bothering you.
Yeah, because they you know, worried about lead poisoning.
Matter of fact, you'd probably want to be on your claim protecting it.
Yeah. To some extent, Dan, on the other hand, it's not that we have more to worry about. It's that we don't have big stuff to worry about. So we have time to fidget about little stuff. It's like, oh, somebody called me a bad name on YouTube. Before it was like, look, we better get that crop in before the storm hits in 2 days, or we're going to be starved to death before springtime, you know? And so when you're worrying about big stuff, or let's put it, when you are
busy.
dealing,
when you're busy, you're not worrying about
with
all
big
this
stuff, then you don't.
That's one reason.
You got the market cornered on that, Lars.
Yeah.
You don't have time to worry. You know, you think, You plan
And
you
you do it.
execute,
Yep, you do
and
it.
you're too busy executing to sit there and just worry about stuff, you know? And well, he's got a sand and gravel operation now. You know, what the heck? You know, aggregate is us.
Yeah, you start some other. Got to really think hard on that one, Lars.
But that's to say. So that's one of the things people worry about. Little stuff. Oh, you used the wrong pronoun. It used to be, oh, you're shooting me. You know,
Right.
And so they you have a natural system in your mind. You're looking for dangers, you're looking for trouble and stuff like that. And if you don't have real trouble, you'll invent it just to keep that system. That's why
that's true.
You know, children
you create nightmare. You create your own nightmares sometimes. You know,
children who live in really clean environments have a lot more autoimmune diseases because their immune system doesn't have real targets to go after, so it invents them. I got to look at something to go, you know.
Yeah.
And then you wind up attacking yourself because you don't have something obvious to attack.
Right.
Yeah.
Got to go get dirty.
So, as I say, it's just, it is concerning, but we're not worrying. We're executing.
Yeah.
We're dealing with
Stick
stuff.
to the plan and go forward.
Yeah. Ooh, that's pretty good, Kodak. How can the shit hit the fan if there's no electricity?
No fan. Can't.
That's a good one, Kodak. I gotta give you high score of the night on that one, even though the one ball thing wasn't bad. This one's even better, you know. But I didn't think about it. That's good.
Yeah.
I like. There's a meme in there
no
somewhere,
electricity.
you know. But yeah, I say it's just one of those things that if you're worried about little stuff, you drive yourself crazy. If you're concerned about big stuff, you think, you plan, you execute, you don't worry too much. Good plan, blind dude. There you go, Lars. Well, you know, if you had a lot of energy storage, you could put up a water wheel, and then as all this floodwaters run, then you could charge your energy storage. You know.
Yeah.
Well, it would depend on the chemistry of the mud too, I think. Anyhow, go ahead and cover for me.
All right. Well, I don't know what I'm covering, but
that's nothing to do with that.
we need some more mining questions, I guess, or to hear what everybody else is doing. I mean, what are you guys doing? I know, you know, some of us are prepping and doing anything we can, but yeah, I agree, John. Well, Lars, you got to get that all rigged up and generating power. Maybe it already is, I guess. That's yeah, we kind of ran out of time here for the metal detecting, Gold Pan. We got about a foot of snow on the ground, give or take, and that kind of ended that part of the season. Yeah, plus the ground is kind of froze up with the moisture, so we'll see. You never know. We could get 60-degree weather in January yet, though, and still get out and play.
You've been doing it, but you've also noticed.
Yeah.
Let's go a little while here. When the water heats up, I'm going to test it. Yeah, if you got fine gold, it can get stirred up too.
Yeah, it can suspend in that debris.
Especially if you don't have enough water. If you got a high solids content, it becomes very thick. And so you're actually got like a thin mud instead of
If you've got
water.
If you've got flowing water like a garden hose or something, you can set the bucket on edge a little bit, tip it a little bit, and use that garden hose and keep moving that and stir that mud, but just let it overrun slow.
Yeah.
And you can eventually clean up, that material in there, carrying that clay off without really losing much for gold. But you do still want to be careful.
Oh, there will be farming. I don't know about how big the farming will be.
It'll be small scale garden farm market.
What do you think of limestone inclusions in slate for gold potential? The limestone if you had a limestone mass, that would be better.
You'd want to be looking for
more intrusives,
intrusives along the limestone, ideally.
Yeah. Yeah, I say the gold tends to come from magmatic sort of
right.
stuff.
Anywhere you get that contact with another set of rocks, you could definitely have some mineralization that would have pushed into or against the limestone.
Ooh. Yeah, and look for the marbleized limestone. That'll tell you had that
heat and pressure. Yep. The more marbleized, the closer you're getting to it being a cap, ideally.
Yeah, over there at the top of the hill claim there's a intrusive about 2 miles away. I think that's where a lot of that solution came from.
Yeah.
Be careful you don't undermine the slab or the foundation too much, blind dude.
Yeah, you want to support it as you're going.
Yeah.
If you're going to undermine, cut.
So
you don't want to crack your footing on the house in two or something and have a cave in.
You have to be careful, but it can be done.
Oh yeah, it can be done.
It'd be easier to do it before you put the house there, but well,
it could be done with.
Then you got to hide the fact that you got a lot of dirt coming out from under your house.
Yeah,
too.
You got to think that one through how you do that, or unless you got a spot to fill in the backyard or something that nobody will notice.
Yep. At least a 6-foot fence suddenly became a 5-foot fence. Yeah. Grass will grow through stuff pretty well when it's moist and the right temperature.
Oh yeah, you can cover up a lot of debris fairly fast, but
yep. Oh, but it would be a good idea to
you want to see where the water table is too. You don't want to have to start digging and have the water table in your basement either. So
well, and that just drainage in general. You want to make sure that the water drains well from away from your house.
No, a bunker would not be an impossibility if you're not in the water table or have a real high water table.
Not that there's any chance of a nuclear war anytime soon or anything. Well, I don't know why you'd worry about that. I know someone that
storage.
Has an underground shooting range, and it's like, that would be a good thing to turn into a fallout shelter. Yeah. Yeah, Jeff, the carbon does tend to precipitate the gold out of solution. Yeah, John. Okay, Lars, as long as you pay the shipping. Oh, man, that sucks.
That does. You do the work and then it fills all back in on you.
You really need to see what you can do to like above your lower adit there. If you can get that road up above it and cut it into the hillside a little bit.
Get the water going some other
to get
direction.
It running down that road. I don't care if it messes up the road, as long as it doesn't wind up in your tunnel, you're in a lot better shape. But yeah, that's been a mess. That's just horrible, Lars. Yeah, blind dude.
Again.
Again. Another, what was 3.5 inches in 4 hours or something like that, I believe.
Lauren just
I
confirmed.
remembered.
Yeah, he confirmed your plate sizes.
My brain actually worked. Did you get that, Dan?
Got it.
Okay. All right. I can't believe it. I actually remembered something. My brain
Every
isn't
once in a while
completely
it
gone yet.
happens.
Yeah. Well, perhaps it was just random
Measure
luck,
it.
you know?
Measure it, write it down, then measure it again and write it down again.
Yeah. And yeah, if you can do it with your plasma cutter, a 1/2 inch hole directly in the center of that gold pan. Countersunk, if you can manage it, countersunk on the hard face side.
Yeah, face.
Yep. Still one marble left. That's not bad. That's not bad. Number 2 for the night. Did he get the other one that was really good?
Somebody, I don't know if, I think it might have been.
Was
him.
that Dan?
I don't know. I don't remember now. I think that might have been David Vila.
Sweet. Hey, Gold Pan, were you the one with the fan and electricity thing too? Because man, that's a 2. You know, scoring 1 and 2 for a night. Ooh, nice. Oh my goodness.
No, John had that. Kodak.
Was that John?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. They're on top of it tonight, man. Yeah. I like it.
Oh, the humor helps, guys.
You know, it was kind of cool working with you and Lauren out there because A, I wasn't the strongest guy. B, I wasn't the most knowledgeable guy. So
we just have fun. That's that's the thing about the right crew of guys. You just have fun and you're working hard. You know, it's work, but we give each other a bunch of crap and just keep going. And
well, I ran
anybody
my own
walking
business.
in goes, man, these guys are going to kill each other, and it's not the case. It's actually all in good fun.
I ran my own business for over 2 decades.
Yeah,
the kettle corn, and so I was always the guy that had to be in front.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice to just be able to kick back and say, what do you want me to do? And fairly easy stuff.
Yeah.
We
take it as it comes, but all of us have had enough experience in things working good and things not working good that, you don't get flustered by much anything anymore.
And all of us have been around long enough to know, don't, get underneath the hanging load and stuff like
Stay
that.
Out of the way. Don't get hurt.
And if somebody's doing something stupid, one of the other guys will say, hey, do you really want to do that?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. think that one through for a moment.
Nobody's got such huge egos out there that
it's all, we just have fun. And that's working with Lauren and that. It's been a blast. Absolutely great time.
Yeah, we had a good time up there. And that second trip up there to get those trailers, it worked out really well because Eva's back was, not doing too good. And she wanted to go up there. But I'm like, I'm not sure. I don't know what we're going to run into. But we got 2 trailers. So I'll go up the first trip. And then and it worked out beautiful because that big herd of elk stuff,
that was pretty cool.
Worked.
They were there for a couple days too.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Man, that was a big herd. Now, is all that private land up there?
Yep, right there it is.
So
right on the edge.
Whoever was shooting either had permission or was breaking the rules.
Well, there's a part of them elk were on a piece of state land too.
Okay.
So they were legal on that side of the fence.
Yep, you were right. It was John.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, John, you're ahead for the night.
You're on the board. Top of the board.
You're the leader. You're the leader right now on the leaderboard.
Yeah.
Man, but yeah, that was great, and I'm so glad we went up there because Eva's never seen anything like that before. Big herd of hundreds of elk like that, and that was cool as far as I was concerned. I had a great time too.
Yeah, well, and it wasn't that cold those days. It wasn't too bad out.
Yeah, the temperature was low, but there wasn't
snow,
any wind.
Right, it was just nice out.
And as long as you got reasonable clothing and there's no wind, it's pretty easy to resist the cold, at least until the point where it starts hurting to breathe.
Yeah, as long as you're not wet or something.
Yeah, that worked out. That worked out great. I was really happy on that one. I had a really good day. Got a point there, Lars. Although if you used a pipe bomb, you'd be more likely. Wow. Blind Dude says near Glenwood, New Mexico, we had to wait almost an hour for an elk herd to cross the highway.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it happens up here too. If you get down north of the park down here,
Really?
and sometimes them elk are by the thousands.
You mean Yellowstone?
Yeah, north of the park, they come up by Dome Mountain in winter,
Mm-hmm.
and when they're in there, it's unbelievable.
Wow. Yeah, that is way cool. Still haven't seen a bear yet.
You will.
Yeah, I'm sure I will.
You keep wandering around out in the woods up here, you eventually will.
I hope they usually mosey on the other way.
Yeah.
Chicken fried elk. Yeah, as long as it works out okay, John. Oh my goodness. Oh.
Yeah.
True. Little elk asada. Little elk molino. Yep. Boy, you guys have freaking hot chilies in New Mexico too. Man, don't you guys know how to make a mild chili in New Mexico? You ever been there?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't know how to make mild doodly in New Mexico. Very annoying. My stomach didn't like it. You know, you really have to get something like carne asada with tortillas just for self-protection.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Well, guys, next Monday night, we'll try to keep building on the next level of geology and things.
Well,
I need to talk to Jim.
Now.
Yeah, I need to talk to Jim a little bit there, Rock Butcher, and consult with him on a few things, and we'll try to take it up another step.
Too hot for me, Chris. I'm just a little wussy boy. Yep. Yeah, well, we should have some results from the lab by then. Eva will start furnacing tomorrow. And we're also going to be doing some testing where we've got some old crucibles that are getting kind of eroded.
Yeah.
So cut them off with a grinder, fill them with cement, and use them for cupels. We're going to be trying that here pretty quick
how
too.
that works out.
Yep.
I have one of my crucibles is filled with Portland cement right now.
Mm-hmm. You know what we got to get the dish top? Electric insulator, one of those glass insulators.
Stick it in. There you go.
It works great.
Yeah, I got the right radius and everything.
Uh-oh. Lars says, watch my next video. I really screw up this time. Well, apparently it wasn't fatal or you wouldn't be typing.
Yeah. Still have all your fingers and toes, Lars?
Wow. Let's see. He's got it
He probably
uploaded
doesn't
yet.
have it yet.
I bet you he doesn't.
Maybe.
No, it's not uploaded yet.
Oh,
well.
he'll get it out sooner or later.
Let's see.
Cool.
You're welcome, David.
I think he left for the night already.
Oh. Yeah, we should probably call it a night. Got a bit to do tomorrow morning. So far, the truck is still starting okay.
Yeah. Well, it's supposed to warm up now the next few days. It's not supposed to be so cold.
Yeah.
Which will be nice.
Yep.
Well, Goldstream showed up.
Hey, Goldstream.
Yeah.
We're
running out of mining things.
Running out of
unless somebody brings up something new.
Yep. Oh.
A good night, just a short one.
So, how's things been going to you, Goldstream? I saw a video of yours, but I never got to actually watch the video. I got lost in the electrons. Okay, Dan.
Cool, Dan. I'll definitely watch it.
Yep.
Yeah, I caught Goldstream's last one and made a comment there. And I've been trying to keep up with. Yeah, I think I might have missed one a while back, but
I saw what's his name, Jeff Williams, put one up tonight, and he's teasing something else, but then he also did a lot of segments from other videos. That was
he went
pretty
back
cool.
on some old video. Yeah, I started watching it, and then I had something else I had to go do.
What is your preferred method for separating black sands? Magnet first, and whatever is non-magnetic, table is the best?
That's what I've gone to is my RP4 table, but I have one that not everybody has one. Reverse magnet.
It also depends a lot on the gold itself. And Dan, hers, they were using a spiral to finish it up. But
yeah.
I've seen stuff where a spiral doesn't work for the darn.
Yeah, that's the problem. Goldstream is RP4 is kind of out of reach for most guys.
I think he had about 6.6 ounces.
Honestly, mining magnets is starting to make some pretty neat little products, and I would suggest you guys check them out. I know you've probably looked at that Goldstream as far as what he's got, but
I really like Coulter.
Yeah,
he's got a really good sense of how to tweak something to where it's really functional.
He's coming up with some pretty good product there, I think. I've used a blue bowl a lot on fine when it gets down really, really fine. Trying to get that last little bit, I'll go to the blue bowl.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, as far as products that are out there that would be probably fairly cost effective, even for a small guy, mining magnet, Coulter's probably got about the only thing out there in that range. Short of a blue bowl. I mean, a blue bowl is probably your cheapest quick avenue. You can get online, order one for whatever, $100 to $130 or whatever, and away you go. But
what size would you classify to run on the RP4?
I've had stuff that it was 1/4 inch and smaller that I've ran on my RP4. I do run a piece of window screen on the upper part for any of the bigger pieces, but honestly, I didn't spend a lot of time classifying down unless I really had a problem with fine gold. Then I would classify down to, 20.
I was running 30 mesh, but that was because that's what I was just classifying.
Yeah.
I was grinding to and then classifying to 30 mesh. Goldstream likes 20 mesh.
20 seemed to work out pretty good as far as taking out any little, bigger pieces, hematite or anything that might be in there.
Generally, window screen for everyone watching is about 16 mesh. So window screen should be fine for that.
Yep. And that's kind of what I set that up for, is just I could run a little bit of heavier material without having to sit and classify constantly down.
RP4 is not manufactured anymore, I don't believe. It used to be sold by Keen Engineering, and it was made by Global Mining Solutions.
Yeah.
I don't think they manufacture them here. It's a Deister table, similar to a Whiffley table.
Yeah.
But it's small, about $3,000. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, Lars. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
really
make sense.
for the material we had most of the time, that worked out very well though. It's running circulating reverse magnets, so it's pushing the black sand up into the water stream. And the ridges in the table were good enough. They actually had gold traps for your heavier material, as well as a 3-part separation of your material across the table. And it worked out really, really well.
I don't know, Dan. I haven't looked for a long time. It's my understanding that Global Mining Solutions isn't building them anymore, but for all I know, Keene is now, or they got someone else to do it.
It's actually, if you look at one, they're really not that complex, short of when they came up with a plastic top.
Yeah.
There was, that's a little more critical.
Blind dude, if you're using bungee cords to suspend it, the problem is it will not work because it'll bounce up and down. Okay. And that's just going to totally screw things up. Trust me. What you can do to get a horizontal motion is you take a couple of 1-inch angle irons and weld them to where they're like this. 1-inch steel ball bearings. You're going to need to put a couple little pieces of strap in there to keep the ball bearings from just running anywhere. And then you put, I think it was 1 1/4 inch, 1.5 inch angle iron on top. So you got small angle iron, big angle iron, 1-inch ball. It makes linear bearings.
Right.
And to hold it all together, you can just use a couple of springs to just hold
Keep
it down.
the pressure down on it.
Yeah. And you get beautiful horizontal motion.
Right. Just the slide motion.
Yeah. That'll do it. Another thing you can do is what they call what I call a flex plate. You just take some thin sheet metal and have a frame underneath and your tabletop above, and screw the sheet metal both places. And then when you work your thing, that sheet metal
flexes
and allows it to move in a very tight plane.
Stable, right.
It's not bouncing very much. The negative to the flex plates is they can only move a little bit, or you're going to get fatigue, or you're going to get bounce. If it's doing like this, it's going up and then down and up and then down. But if you're oscillating 1/4 inch, you could probably do it with a flex plate 6 inches high without too much trouble. The channel with ball bearings in it gives you perfectly linear motion over a much greater distance. Like with my gravity separator, it's about 1.5 inch throw. And it does that just fine. It's real simple, real reliable. Yep. So
yeah, it's doable. And there's probably some videos out there on building one, I would have to bet, if you went digging.
I don't know what kind of linear bearings they use on a 3D printer, but whatever you use on a table has got to take dirt. Okay. Yeah. You have to be able to throw mud at it and water and things like that for a long period of time without damaging. So if they'll do it, that's fine. But so those are different ways. I believe the RP4 has flex plates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's got flex plates.
It's got flex plates on each end that, as the table moves, they just flex.
Yeah.
So you've got your stop motion in a way because it's so limited.
Yeah. The concern I'd have with hacksaw blades is they can also twist a lot easier than a much wider plate. The flex plates I had on my table, I'm actually using them as guards also. So they're like almost 2 feet long. Mm-hmm. But that way you can't get your hand in there into the rotating shaft area, and they work just fine. Keeps a nice linear thing. There's 2 bolts at the top, 2 bolts at the bottom, as I recall. Might be more, but I'm not sure. It's sitting over at Lawrence.
It is a good subject, Goldstream. Definitely.
Yeah.
It is a good topic. Because black sand, I mean, every one of us that's panned or anything, you're dealing with black sand, and it's, I don't know. I find those cleanups, especially when you have a lot of it from a commercial level operation, the cleanups suck.
It's no fun.
I know, when you can go over and pick little pickers out of the sluice box and things like that, that's fun. But when you get to that big cleanup, it sucks.
Yeah. No, I say I like flex plates. They're very simple. But again, they have the problem that if you're going a long distance, they're going to tend to go up and down and up and down. I call that bounce.
Right.
And in some situations, that bounce is really deleterious.
Right.
Yeah. I just actually use stainless steel, Chris. Just
Yeah, that can take quite a bit of flexing without heat fracture.
like 20 gauge sheet, something like that.
It's thin, but yet it can take that movement.
Didn't have a problem. I mean, I've run it for on my table probably over 100 hours, and there's not any sign of cracking at all. Yeah.
And you can buy thin spring steel too. It's gonna, work fracture at some point.
Yeah, I say sheet stainless steel is easy to come by. Sheet spring steel, I think, would be a lot harder to just find.
Yeah, you probably have to go looking specifically for it.
I'm not sure. I didn't even try carbon steel. Although with that short a throw, I don't think carbon steel would be a problem.
It might be
either.
too stiff. I don't know.
Well, it's how thick you make it.
Well, that's true.
Stainless is actually a little stiffer
than
carbon steel.
You're right. Yeah, there you go, Chris. That's actually a good idea. Yep. Banding is a good spring steel.
Mm-hmm.
Thin.
Yeah, it might be hard to see the bump. My table bumps, and
like the RP4 has got an arm under it, so it's limited.
Yeah,
and it's so you get the bump. I think based on the rotation,
you get a quick
return.
Yeah, but mine has an actual bump, and neutral on the flex plates is, I don't know, a quarter inch away from the stop. Then I got a threaded rod that runs in it's got an angle on the outside, and then there's a nut welded to the back of the table frame, and there's a spring between the.
So you got a little bit of float.
So and then I put a what do you call it? Friction nut on the rod. So I got the friction nut, a washer, a spring, and then the stop. And then I can just screw that rod in and out and push that spring harder or less hard, bring it up against the stop, and then get what kind of housing. Another thing I found with flex plates, you don't want to move the device without locking the motion. So that's where that also comes in handy. I can just bring it out, because otherwise you'll bend those flex plates.
And I agree with you there, Goldstream. That'd be another way to do it, is have a little cleanup sluice with a real fine mat, run that, and then whatever's left, you could go to a blue bowl or a shaker table, finish up.
I don't know, Dan. I'd have to look at the drawing to be more sure. Tables need a consistent feed rate. Yeah. Mine is probably a little more forgiving than others for a couple of reasons. So one thing I did for a feed on mine is I have a bucket, you put a lid on it with a hole in it, and then you set it in the rack.
Yeah, that's
If it's
okay.
dry, it'll feed at a pretty consistent rate.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, and we did that anyway, Chris, as far as, running number 2 and number 3 back across the table. It's just a way of reducing those concentrates down to the last of the last.
oh my goodness. My tummy's hurting. Yeah, little one, I'm getting hunger pangs again. It's getting very annoying. I'm either too full or have hunger pangs.
Well, if I might make a point here, your carbs are probably a lot higher than they should be.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, Goldstream. It's usually at least a 3-step process. That's why I say it's a pain in the ass, because it's not the fun part of the gold mining, really. It's always nice to see the gold at the end, but it's not the fun part.
Yeah, I think you're probably pushing your carbs a lot higher than you should be right now, Bear. It's upsetting your blood sugar level.
Ugh.
So you
Well,
might want to stop.
None of these have sugar in them.
The cherries do.
Well, natural sugar. They got a little fructose in the cherries themselves. But,
Yeah, that's pretty damn high carb.
only about 5 cherries in there. Let's see. Let's take your process, which is placer.
Yeah.
You've got you're acquiring the material. Was ours is a little bit more difficult, but still acquiring the material. Then you put it over a grizzly, some kind of a screen, sluice it.
Yeah.
Then you have to clean out the sluice.
Yeah.
And
I would
clean your concentrate.
Right. I would take from my big sluice box system. I would go to a small trommel in another 1-foot sluice box.
Okay.
So everything we took out, short of the carpets, if it was fine enough in the carpets, we just run them into a water tank. We'll clean them, clean the carpets and that. Everything else goes into a second trommel system and a 1-foot sluice box to refine the cons one more time. And then it would all go basically to the RP4 table.
See, whereas ours, once we get the rock, then we got to pulverize it, which is usually a 2-step process.
Yep.
Crush and pulverize.
Yep.
Then we have to run through the agitation tank. Then the resin. So we've only got maybe a couple more steps than you. It's just they tend to be a little bit more complicated.
A little different, yeah, a more complex system to do versus placer. But
how fast do your screens and stuff wear out? I mean, you throwing bearings and stuff like that on a regular basis, or
oh yeah,
they're pretty reliable?
Well, I would say pretty reliable for the most part, as long as things are getting greased and maintained and everything. But your bars on your grizzly, when you're throwing basketball sized rocks across them, wear, and there's wear on it. I mean, it's like throwing rocks into a hay baler. You're wearing crap out constantly.
So how long would your screens last on a vibrating screen before you'd have to replace them if you were running 5 days a week?
Probably half the season.
Okay.
So, you always have those extra screens. Redundancy is your best friend.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but that's what I was wondering, because when you're dealing with the hard rock, of course, the wear is pretty extreme in certain places.
Yeah, in your grinding and pulverizing and that's where your wear is. Our wear really on a trommel would be on the grizzly and the trommel itself, depending on how that screened or screen deck, multiple screens. There's your wear for the most part. That and belts, your belts, if you're stacking or something, your belts can rip and tear.
Conveyors.
Yeah.
Okay.
But your wear is mainly your screens.
Yeah, that's what I would think on that. And of course, you're going to
It might even be a little better than 1,000 yards, Chris. It just depends on the material and what you're doing there.
Well, and you're not going to be using a 1/8 inch screen with run of mine material.
No, but
you're going to have a previous one or two screens.
Right, you're going to have 2 screens above that probably. You're going to screen to 3/4 of an inch, let's say, or 5/8 of an inch, and then you're going to screen down to 1/4 inch, and then maybe a third screen at an 1/8 inch. If you're running like a 3-deck screen.
Well, what do you do to? I mean, obviously, you don't want a 2-foot rock to land on 3/4 inch screen.
No,
that's going to beat it.
No, that's where you're grizzly. You're coming across, and whether you're washing those big rocks or just dumping them off the grizzly.
Oh, how finely spaced are your grizzly bars?
On both of my plants, about 6-inch rocks mainly will go through the trommel. So you're talking small watermelon sized rocks or elongated rocks that will go through the screens on the trommel.
Okay.
So those can get pretty aggressive, but when you're, and that makes a difference too, Dan. Punch plate versus wire is completely different. And I've got 2 different trommels. I've got one that's wire screen, woven screen, and I've got one that's punch plate. And the punch plate's I don't know, probably 10 years old, a solid running rocks through it, and it still doesn't hardly show any wear.
How thick is that punch plate?
Probably close to 1/2 inch.
Okay.
So, but that was intended, it was built for that.
Built for brute.
Yeah, it was built to run rocks through.
Yeah.
That's what it was built for.
Yeah. Now, for your throughput, how much better does the woven wire do than the punch plate?
I don't think it changes the throughput much at all. The biggest thing is the wear. The screens, I think that one plant set up with 3/4 inch screen, 3/4 by 3/4. Those screens, you're good for probably 2,000 to 3,000 yards, and you're changing those screens out. So about halfway through a season, or maybe a little less, you're changing screens out. Because it literally wears the edges right out of them.
Well, now you're switching between vibrating screen and trommel in speaking here. So
no, I've got 2 trommels. One's punch plate and one's actual screen around it.
Okay.
And like I say, the screen you're changing out a couple times a season.
Okay.
Where a punch plate, like I say, that thing's pushing 15 years old and it's seen lots of rock, and it's still just as good as the day it was built. So your wear component, granted, your punch plate's going to cost you a lot more to have it bent and fabricated, multi times of what the screen is. The screen is
how
the
big are
cheaper
the
way
plates in the punch plate? I mean,
it's
you have to hoist them in there,
well,
or is this something you can move by hand? Okay.
It's one big, huge piece of steel with holes.
Jeez, how big is that?
4 feet by 17 feet, I think.
17 feet long, 4 feet in diameter.
Yeah,
so
punched. Well, it's not all punched. About 8 feet of it's punch plate.
Okay. Yeah, so you're
looking
12 feet around, circumference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they probably started with like a 12 by 8 sheet of punch plate, rolled it into a 4-foot tube.
Yep.
And then put solid steel at both ends of that.
One end. So you've got a washing. Basically, your first capacity of your trommel is a washing circuit.
Okay.
Before it gets to a screen, right? It's just beating it up and cleaning, pounding the mud off the rocks, or just disassemble the gravel. Basically, it's a washing circuit.
Turn it into
and then you're going
particles
to your screening circuit, and then offloading whatever's not going through the punch plate is offloading.
Well, if you had 9 feet of solid and 8 feet of punch plate, Odd sizes. I would think that again, 4 by 12 foot would be more of a standard size sheet,
It
wouldn't
probably it would be, yes.
it? Yeah.
Or 6 foot by 12 foot. Yeah, a punch plate's definitely the way to go as far as taking out the short-term change outs. Because even, you buy woven wire screen now, heavy enough for mining, and it's not cheap anymore. So if you're changing it out a couple times a season, plus your downtime, if you're down for half a day while you're changing screens out, and that, it's much, much better to go punch plate. You're not going to be fixing it for, many years.
Well, aside from the initial cost, I would think it's going to weigh a lot more.
It's going to weigh more.
And
it's definitely way more solid.
Now on your screen,
it's not as easy to change, though. That's one of the reasons that they've went with screen on a lot of them, is if you change locations and need to change up your screening size, it's easy to change a screen. If you've already got a punch plate that's cut, like in my case, 3/4 inch, or some 1-inch holes, actually, you can't really change that.
Yeah.
You could put another screen around the outside or something that's going to give you plugging and blinding problems.
Yeah.
That's the problem with sorting rock, is if you don't get the grizzly right or things, you get rocks that get stuck at the wrong places at the right time and things like that. It's something you fight all the way through the whole system, is getting it figured out for what size, for the kind of material you're running, so you're not blinding out your grizzly constantly with rocks stuck in it.
Yeah.
And things like that. Because a grizzly can be another just nightmare.
Well, when you're using a trommel, it's going to be self-cleaning to a certain amount. As it comes around, the rocks will tend to fall out of the hole too, right?
Sometimes. But if you get the right material on the wrong set of holes, or grizzly slots, they just tend to plug it out, blind out the whole thing. So there's always that trade-off of getting it right based on the material.
Yeah. Like everything else. Testing.
Well, and some guys have set it up to where they've got a one-size screen for like half of their sluice box or boxes, and then another size screen for the other half of their sluice box. So they run a little heavier material in that second set of boxes, maybe. They can run 1-inch material in case, if they're into big gold.
Yeah.
But by segregating it, changing out screens on the trommel too, you can, adjust that some. But
cinnamon apples, huh? Interesting concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some definite frustration in running material. Yeah, exactly, Goldstream. That's what I was just kind of commenting on, is you can run different size plate or screens for different sluice boxes. Yeah.
Well, if somebody hadn't done this before and they had some time, would it make sense to like load a dump truck of stuff and go run it through the plant you're looking at buying?
That ideally, yeah, or at least run enough material in your tests to see that, kind of do a differential on the material. How much material is 6-inch rocks and bigger, and how much material is 1-inch rocks and bigger, and how much gravel, what's the percentage of gravel, and then you can kind of build or match the plant to what you need to, what you're running. And that's why I've said all along, don't go buy a plant and think it's just going to work for this operation out here. You want to have your equipment tailored to the site and the material you're running.
You mean one size doesn't fit all?
No. And it can be, and I've seen that too many times where guys went and bought a plant, and it's not the right plant for what they're trying to do. I've got holes, Jeff, in my punch plate trommel up to, I believe, 1.25 inches. There's a scattered amount of them right at the back end that'll go out to 1.25 inches. Most of it is like right around 3/4 of an inch diamond cut holes.
Why would they want to do that?
Because we were into some gold that was quite a bit heavier, 3/4 ounce nuggets and stuff.
Yeah.
We wanted to make sure we got them in the sluice box and didn't have to go through the tailings pile on the wash rock.
Okay.
Because we were getting to where every day we were having to push out the wash rock and metal detect the wash rock piles, because there would be occasional large chunks of gold like your thumb. And it was like, okay, this is scary.
So kind of at the discharge end.
The last couple inches of the last strip has some bigger holes.
Okay.
So you get some rock too, but our water control and our sluice and everything was enough that a few big rocks bouncing through the sluice didn't hurt too much.
Uh-huh.
If anything, it would just carry the gold lower in the sluice. But that's a balancing act in itself too, because the bigger the material you're running through your sluice, the more chance you have of moving that gold farther and farther down the sluice.
Yeah. And
that's another thing you can do is that last part of that trommel, which the only problem you have there is you create a cement mixer by putting a big retention ring in, that big chunk of gold will stay behind the retention ring, and the rest of the rocks will keep pushing themselves over that retention ring like a trap. The only problem with that is your trommel's carrying that rock constantly like a cement mixer.
Yeah.
You'd never get rid of that certain amount of rock in that trommel,
right,
without hand throwing it out of there.
Is that extra wear at that point? Or?
Sure, you're going to wear on that ring really bad. Plus, you're going to wear on your screens or whatever you're running on.
So something like that, you'd almost want to have like the last foot be a thicker punch plate.
Well, that
with the retention
punch plate's actually heavy enough it could run many years without really, a metal loss real bad. But I mean, there's always trade-offs in every kind of design and thing you come up with, and sometimes
I hate that part.
Well, sometimes they can actually create worse bottlenecks than what you had to begin with. So you're always trying to figure out the material you're running and design or build from there, or make sure it's a piece of equipment that will run okay with that without blinding it out. You get the right size rocks in a 3/4 inch screen even, and it'll plug the whole screen up.
Huh.
You'd think they'd fall out as it goes around, and it's shaking and bouncing, and it doesn't. It'll blind off holes within. It'll grab them, just like stick them in there. So you really got to know your material.
Well, another thing I've heard of that can be used to minimize blinding on a vibrating screen was they would build a retention device and then just put steel balls on it, so they're bouncing around. But the balls are so big they can't get out of that section,
Yeah, that's almost going to a jig at that point. But,
well, I mean, these are like big balls, like not like mine, just and multiple ones, Put the draft in the right direction. Yeah. What is it? They got a chamfer to them or something, or I mean, I thought
they're pretty square. They're pretty square, actually. Yes, and they will round off on the inside a little bit. Yeah.
I don't know what you mean by the draft. So I could see if they were slightly tapered, then there'd be a directional side there. But
there's some reality in the fact that
just when you roll it, it's
looking into your feed into your trommel, it's running clockwise.
Okay.
Looking into the output into your trommel is running. No, it should be running counterclockwise. Excuse me. You're wanting a reverse, and we played with that on a trommel we were building that was absolutely freaking insane. But if the trommel was running clockwise, the rocks went through it faster than if it was running counterclockwise. And why the hell that was, we never did figure that one out.
No, blind. I've never done waders myself, so I wouldn't know.
Couldn't tell you on the waders.
Yep, that's not something I know about.
Doc. Ooh.
Well, the first thing you're going to want to find out, Doc, is the particle size of the gold and whether or not it's distributed in the arsenal pyrite or outside the arsenal pyrite. So you're going to want to do a fine crush on that and a gravity separation to recover the actual gold particles first. Now, with an arsenal pyrite, there's a really good chance they're going to be really fine particles. And in that case, you're probably going to have to go to a leaching system. And with your arsenic, and you may have other stuff in there that's pretty nasty too, you're going to have to be careful to make sure that during the crushing, you don't create dust that you're breathing.
Yeah.
And when you're doing the leaching, you're not creating a waste that you have trouble disposing of. But arsenal pyrites generally are going to have pretty fine gold, and that will generally mean you're going to have to leach it. But if you have coarse gold, then you could do a fine crush and then a gravity separation. But that's what you have to find out quickly before you start doing anything else. How is that gold distributed in the arsenal pyrite? And say, is it coarse? Is it fine? Is it in the pyrite? Is it on the pyrite? Things like that. Okay, in that case, Doc, you're going to be leaching, and you're going to do better if you roast it, but you're going to be creating some very, very nasty fumes. So I would seriously consider just a very fine grind and a direct leach and just take your losses. But you're going to have to be very careful on how you deal with that and how you dispose of your tailings, because you got some nasty stuff there, both from a practical standpoint and from a legal standpoint.
Yep.
Okay. Goldstream is just joshing you in case you didn't catch that one, Doc.
Yeah,
they do that
don't
around
be
here.
licking the rocks.
Yep.
If you know there's arsenopyrite in it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another thing in any situation with hard rock. Do you have good specimen grade material? Or if you're in placer, do you have something else? Like around here, you can get sapphires.
Yeah.
Depending upon where you're at. Yeah, you got to be very careful with it to make sure you don't screw things up. And you've got respirators that'll protect you, and you've got gloves and things like that. But yeah, arsenal pyrite, half iron, half arsenic. It's potentially quite toxic, so you need to be very careful. That is definitely a hazardous material.
Right.
If it was that lethal, nobody would have been able to mine it in the past, but it is potentially dangerous.
Oh yeah, it's a hazard.
So you have to use proper equipment and procedures to protect yourself from it.
If you start getting white hair and white fingernails, you're not using enough PPE.
No, that might be. That's more
Seriously, in the time of the Borgias, Italian women used to take very small amounts of arsenic in their food because they considered white hair and dead white fingernails to be pretty.
You were asking whether you wanted whether impact mills or ball mills were better. Um, they have different strengths. Impact mills are less expensive and a lot more portable. Um, and ball mills tend to be big, heavy, expensive, and efficient. So if you're looking to crush up a lot of rock over a long period of time in a particular spot, ball mills will generally be the best. If you're looking for testing purposes or for starting or this or that, an impact mill is usually the easiest thing to start with. And in terms of ball, jaw, or spinning crane shredder, a jaw is not like either of the other two.
Right.
A jaw is not a pulverizer. It's a breaker. It turns big rocks into little rocks, but not into sand or powder. So a jaw mill, a jaw crusher is used to break the big rocks down to something that'll fit into a ball mill or a chain crusher or something like that.
Yeah, it could be a combination of a couple of those as far as, like Keith's doing is jog crusher down to a hammer mill.
Yeah. Ball mill can be made from a cement mixer, right? If you don't care how long your cement mixer lasts.
Yeah, it's not going to last a long time.
Yeah. That's the problem. It will beat your cement mixer up fairly quickly. Yeah, it's just not built strong enough.
No. Not when you have to let it run and run and run and run and run.
Yeah. Another thing is that for any ball mill to last a long time, it's going to have replaceable liners.
Yep.
And when you're crushing gold ore in a ball mill, gold will tend to collect behind the replaceable liners. It would have to be a fairly large diameter steel pipe, blind dude. In a case like that, you could probably use the pipe instead of the cement mixer, depending upon how the ring gear and stuff work. Rubber lined, that's another method of lining a ball mill. The rubber lasts amazingly long because it's resilient and doesn't grind as much. But I've heard, for example, of using old tires inside a cylinder. You just cut the sidewalls off and just
stack them in there.
Stick the treads in there.
Have a way of clamping them somehow.
Then put the end on.
Yeah, I guess it can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be.
And so that can work. You still have to get your grinding media. Now, in the case of a ball mill, you can use what's known as a pebble mill, where you just use cobbles. That will also work, and it's a lot cheaper than steel balls. But I say it's. I've seen stuff in third world countries, videos where they just take steel drums with a hatch on the side and rotate.
I helped a friend build one, and we actually used a big, 500-gallon propane tank.
Yeah,
because they're really heavy walled.
Yeah.
Yep, cut the ends out of it, made caps for the ends, and then he ran that on a set of axles, like two rear ends out of a pickup, and then had another small tire on it so it wouldn't climb. You got to keep it from climbing.
So basically, like a trommel.
Yeah,
right?
Basically like a trommel, but it was actually pretty neat how he did it.
Yeah.
And the idea with the propane tank was pretty cool, but I didn't realize how thick a propane tank actually is.
500 gallon?
Yeah.
What is it? 3/8 or something?
No, it's thicker than that. That sucker was probably all of a half an inch at least, if not a little more.
Yeah. So yeah, that would work.
Yeah, a rod mill would be actually a pretty ideal deal. But it'd still almost have to run as a batch mill unless you get really creative.
Yeah.
And, and have the feed. I mean, if you have the feed to be able to continually feed it, that's a little different too. But
Yeah, and that's a good point. Are you using it as a batch mill where you put stuff in it, roll it for a while, then empty it?
Yeah, clean it.
Or do you want a continuous flow? If you want continuous flow, it gets more complex. As a batch, it's pretty simple. You just need a hatch somewhere.
Open it up and clean it out. Vacuum it all out.
Freeport Mac morons.
Hey, Tricky.
Hi, Tricky. We're talking about fabric cobbling ball mills right then. Old propane tanks apparently have pretty thick walls.
Yep.
And third world countries have lots of propane tanks usually.
They seem to be something you can get your hands on.
Pipeline pipe? Yeah.
That would work out really well. Especially a nice size to it.
Yeah, especially you get a chunk that's about the right length
and everything else.
Instead of a 40-footer, you got to take a piece off of. Yeah. Well, actually, most of the good ideas were late anyway.
Yeah. We can get pretty creative. I don't know. Enough of us in here have all done different things.
And it also depends on what grind size you need. For example, in my case, actually on that last batch, I ran 16 mesh. I got some window screen because it was so damp that the 20 mesh was just
blind out,
really being a problem.
Yeah.
But with my ore, I can get away. I did a 30 mesh and a 20 mesh bottle roll. Worked fine.
Yeah. So you can get away with modifying your sizes.
On the other hand, in a lot of cases, you're going to have to grind it finer than that.
Yeah. If you need liberation, you need to go as fine as you can then.
As a trommel, maybe. Not as a ball mill. You need to have a solid, either that or it gets really complicated. You can have a peripheral discharge ball mill, but it gets pretty complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tricky says that he's used old cement mixers, and it'll probably work for a short period of time.
Yeah.
I don't think so, Chris.
That pipeline pipe, some of that's pretty heavy shit too.
Oh yeah.
It's 3/4 of an inch thick.
Depending upon what they're putting through and what kind of pressures.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that Nord Stream. I think it was running at 3,000 PSI or something.
Oh yeah.
You're talking like, 1-inch wall.
Yep. Some of that stuff's amazingly thick.
Yeah. That's why they x-ray all the welds too. Wow. Think of the pressure that's on, the tensile strain that's on a pipe like that.
But that's why they're not normal steel either.
Yeah.
Try to weld on one once. It's the most frustrating thing ever if you haven't got the right welding rod.
By the way, I was on another thing and see how like right here it says Goldstream Mining at Chris Georgie standby. How do you get it to grab the other person's?
When you go down here, like say something,
yeah,
you need to pull up the A.
What do you mean?
Like that. Then if you watch, if I go Chris, you can hit that, and then you can type what you want.
Okay.
So when you're trying to comment quick, if you just go hit the @ and then the first 2 or 3 letters of somebody's name,
okay,
if there's 2 people with something similar, like we've had what blind sight and blind dude, they'll both come up. So you got to pick which one you want.
Yeah, the thing is, ours is it's always scrolling so slowly. It's not a problem. But when you get on
Well, you
another
get a lot
screen
of
where they got,
people. Yeah, a lot of people commenting and.
okay, what did you just do, blind dude?
To get the orange, that I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Pound.
Oh yeah, that's a pound, isn't it? Yeah, pound sign. Okay. Okay, Tricky. We can stall that long. Let's see if I already got the. Yeah, I've already got the. Yeah, little one. I think somebody is trying to troll us here. Could you take a look at this? I have no idea. I suspect.
Absolutely.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pay
So
no attention to that.
report fishing report. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're ready, Tricky. Whenever you get it sent, just let me know. Was it a different color? Blind dude, the difference between at and pound sign was the same color, but it's different from everyone else because it's my stream. Chris Georgie comes in as blue because he's a moderator. Everyone else just comes in the standard text colors. You know? Oh my goodness. Oh, anyhow. Yeah, it'll be fun getting back in the lab again, getting some results. It's getting a little twitchy, not getting any mining done to speak of.
Yeah, you got to cut back on your carbs again. You need too many carby things.
Computer lesson. Yeah. We need a computer person is what we need.
This is true.
The hell with the lessons. We need an IT guy.
This is true. IT person would come in handy.
Yeah. Yeah, it would.
I totally support this.
She's got a couple sons who know this stuff, but they're doing other stuff.
Well, I was going to have my daughter go through some of this because she does, marketing and development. I'm like, we need you one for a day or two here at some point.
We need an electron wrangler.
Yeah, have it set it up so we understand it.
Yeah, she could probably get that OBS thing if she knows anything about YouTube and get that working, so that he could do picture in a picture and
right. Well, that's what I wanted to do.
Stuff.
Well, I'm sure you could set those to shake a screen, blind dude. Yeah, I'm sure you could. Oh.
Neighbors might not like you. Be right up there with the cement mixer pounding in the backyard.
Just take a piece of wood and stick it between the magnet and,
Yeah.
and whatever you're shaking. I don't know, blind dude.
That's Chris has a point though. The magnets on the speakers that collect that fine magnetic dust like a son of a bitch.
I don't know.
Might be short-lived. Good one, Lars.
You know what happens when you dig too much mud?
Back to.
Oh. It's interesting to see how well, for fine classification, just a rough surface that's being vibrated
Oh, yeah.
will do a pretty
Or
good
stick.
job.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, even a roughed up gold pan, you can get material to stick at a pretty good angle.
I mean, I've played that trick a couple times when I didn't have my classifier with me and I needed to get something fine. But yeah, Chuck up in Yakima taught me that trick, and you can get some pretty fine classification that way if it's dry.
Yeah.
Yeah, worked really well. So
Yeah, I watched a friend of mine who was really good at dry panning,
yeah,
sit and pick gold out constantly, and I'm like, that's interesting. Just dry panning, but he was good at it.
yeah, some guys are. Down in Sonora, they're pretty good at dry panning because they don't have squat for water.
Well, that was how he got good at it, is by doing it, going,
Okay, this is that new ore that can't tell very well from that. Don't see any crystal faces.
Got some
Looks like
alteration to it. That's quartz, it looks like there.
either quartz or calcite. It's hard to tell.
I guess
Yeah.
he would know, but it's got alteration though.
Well, it's got something in it, all right.
Oh, yeah. And some iron and some
And so it's not
chloride of some kind.
You say it's not big crystals of it, so it's
No,
hard to identify.
Fine grained, which
There's his. Apparently, comes in small round BBs.
some metal, some kind of metal.
Yeah. Yeah, Richard. Can't tell just by looking at it. Show us. Kind of hard to do, and it wasn't very useful anyway. Okay, blind dude, how do you do that?
Yeah,
Because I'd like
we're gonna get somebody over here that can go through some IT with us here.
Yeah, we'll grade your progress next Monday.
Yeah,
I'll show you something to grade. But anyhow.
So you want to get a 50%, Bear?
What?
You said you were going to show him something to grade. You want a 50%?
You should have it now. Let's see. Yeah, I already got it, Richard.
Yep.
I say it's one of those things that I can't really see anything that clearly indicates what it is. It looks like a gray sulfide, but it's very small crystals, so I can't get a good idea what the crystals look like. And it
more magnified version of that rock,
yeah. So it's really hard to tell. If you held the button to give me that small bead, that's almost got to be, silver, precious metals.
I would say silver, but
yeah,
looking at the rock, I would say silver, but not necessarily true either.
Yeah. And but yeah, it looks like the kind of stuff that you could have like a lead or a tin core.
Could be
with some silver in it.
Yeah.
But I can't really tell.
I have no idea, Lars.
Yeah,
that's out of my league.
I don't know either. I would think that be more the size and shape would be more critical. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, blind dude. Again, I'm not an electron herder, so maybe his daughter can come over here and show us how to do it.
We'll try to figure it out, though, because it would be really nice for some of the things that we even have to do.
If she comes over and shows y'all how to do it, we have to get a checklist from her that's in about 20-point type so he can read it.
Ooh, harshness.
Because he will forget.
Well, apparently it works just fine, but your grammar sucks. Cold Stream. Uh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
my
about
goodness.
it.
oh
All right, guys, it's been fun, but
Anything else real quick here?
yeah, I'll give you a last chance before we call it a night. Thanks for everybody for being here again and keeping it going.
I don't doubt Goldstream. I know that a while back I put something on my computer so I could go on the Prospector Radio live stream and, video in sort of thing.
The meeting thing.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure we can figure it out. It's just a lot easier when somebody who knows how to do it shows you.
Yes,
As
help
opposed
set
to
it up
having
and get
to
it
figure it
figured
out.
out so we can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the daughter that was out hunting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't remember yesterday either. Yesterday. Oh, that's right. I don't. Oh. Okay. Anyone else got any questions or anything? You take care, Lars. Man, see if you can do something to get that mud down past your portal there. Goodness gracious.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving, guys, and we will see you next Monday. I hope.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving and good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. We want videos.
Yeah, I
I'm working
know.
on it. I'm working on it. Okay, ending stream.